welcome to the Death by Adaptation podcast, a bi-weekly book club where we choose one classic book and compare and contrast it against its cinematic adaptations. I'm your host, Nicolò Grasso, and I'm joined, as always, by the great Ewan Gleadow. How are you doing, Ewan?
Good.
Excited?
I'm fucking knackered last weekend, man. I went to a concert, so I'm still in the concert buzz phase. So
Hey,
yeah, it was a special
riding that
concert.
high.
Yeah, gig was alright as well. So yeah, I'm alright. I'm ready to talk about things and do my job. So yeah, I'm here. I'm present and on time. So
We like the energy.
well,
But
I've
today,
had 3 cans of Coke, so probably
oh man,
I've
the
dribbled a bit on
caffeine is
myself.
hitting in. Caffeine and sugar, the sugar rush and caffeine rush.
Mm.
As long as you don't crash for the next 3 hours, you're gonna be fine.
Oh God. Right. Okay. Deep breaths, everyone.
But we are not alone today because we have very good friend, very special guest, Jakub Flasz from the Uncut Gems podcast. Jakub, how are you doing?
I am Jack's unbridled excitement. Put it that way.
We're starting in hot with the quotes, because of course, today we're back after a relatively brief hiatus for the summer, and we're back to talk about what we do best: movies, books, these adaptations, these beautiful adaptations. And what better way to get back in the groove than talking about Fight Club? But before we continue, as always, are you listening to this on YouTube or on Spotify or on Apple Podcast? Leave us a like, leave us 5 stars, follow, subscribe, whatever rocks your boat. You're free to choose. We like to have you here, and we hope you'll come back after the end of this episode. But now, without further ado, let's talk about Fight Club.
What do you want me to do? You just want me to hit you?
Come on, do me this one favor.
Why?
Why? I don't know why. I don't know. Never been in a fight. You?
No, but that's a good thing.
No, it is not. How much can you know about yourself? You've never been in a fight. I don't want to die without any scars. So come on, hit me before I lose my nerve.
Oh, God. This is crazy.
So go crazy. Let her rip.
Hey, I don't know about this.
I don't either, but who gives a shit? No one's watching. What do you care?
Wait, this is crazy. You want me to hit you?
That's right.
What, like in the face?
Surprise me.
This is so fucking stupid.
Motherfucker! You hit me in the ear!
Well, Jesus, I'm sorry.
Ow! Christ! Why the ear, man?
Ah, I fucked it up.
Oh, that was perfect. Oh! Ah!
Fight Club was originally a short story written by Chuck Palahniuk? Is that correct, Jakub?
I think, well, the way I've seen him introduced is Palahniuk, but I'm not sure.
Chuck Pal.
Chuck
It's
Pal.
our pal.
Well,
Chuck
Our
Pal.
pal Chakanuck.
Oh, Paul Chakanuck. That does sound better, actually. Paul Chakanuck. It was originally developed as a short story. It was, in a bit of a creative slump. It didn't really know what kind of stories to write next, problems with publishers, yada, yada, yada. It was like, you know what? I'm frustrated with the state of the world right now. We're closing the millennium almost. And you know what? I have all this rage and frustration against consumerism and just media in general. And he wrote Fight Club as a short story. And, a publisher liked it. It was like, the short story can be a bit longer. And then it turned into a novella that was further extended into a proper novel in 1996. So, everyone knows about Fight Club. You don't talk about Fight Club, but this is what we're going to be doing.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
I'm here all week trying the wheel.
Ewan, where can people find you?
Where can what? What?
Where can people find you?
Find me, for fuck's sake, mate. We do this at the end.
This is the end.
Oh, right.
My friend.
You don't talk about Fight
You
Club.
can find me on...
You don't talk about two things, Bruno and Fight Club. Anyway, you know about this. You have this narrator, this man who's very bitter about the monotonous life that he has, working, very tired with life, tired with living, until one day he meets one Tyler Durden, this man who is very confident, very sure of himself, and the two strike a friendship, an alliance of sorts, that leads them to creating this Fight Club, this way for, Men like them to meet up and just punch the living shit out of each other to feel better about life. But this beautiful thing that's very, very healthy slowly escalates in something a bit darker. Jakub, what are your thoughts on Fight Club, the novel?
Fight Club, the novel. Oh my Jesus.
Oh man.
I mean, I've been aware of it for a very, very long time, and so like the first time I read it was like last month in preparation for this, and I actually quite like it. I mean, I'll have to say that I really like Palahniuk's style. I would say because I think the word to use for him is minimalist. I think he's one of those guys who doesn't dwell on descriptions. He gets straight to the point. He interjects these sort of things that straight out of the narrator's head, sometimes from his own head. Sometimes it's an interesting sort of guy. And the book just is such a page turner, put it that way. Very nice and easy, and impossible to put down. I'll put that way. I mean, it's not the best book in the world. Like, it's not. Look, I've read better novels. Like, he's not Hemingway. However, it's such a grand old time. I don't know. I'll put it this way. I really had a lot of time, a lot of fun watching, listening, reading this. I can't do this. I had a good time reading this book. It was such a fun book.
Was
and
it
also
your first?
quite an insightful sort of read as well. If you think about what the book's about, by anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Was this your first Palahniuk
Yes.
novel? Okay.
Yeah, and won't be the last, because I think I want to delve into this guy a bit more, especially having listened to him like talk about various podcasts. I mean, I'm not even sure if he thinks the way he like, if you think, oh, he's like, oh, he was tired of consumerism, so he wrote this book. I have a thing that he's almost like a code. He's like an estuary for other people's thoughts as well. So he just hangs out around people and just like ingests their thoughts, and then just these stories come out. So he's
sponge.
Yeah. So he's an interesting dude, and I really like this book.
Nice. Ewan, how
Hello.
about you?
Yeah, it's all right. I only just finished it like yesterday or the day before, so I'd like to say it's still fresh in my mind, but it's really not, because
48 hours is too long.
I don't remember what I did this morning, I'll be honest. Because it is a fun book. I completely agree with Jakub on that. It's a real page turner, where I did have trouble putting it down. But once I did put it down, once I'd finished it, I didn't really have much thoughts on it afterwards. It was kind of just passed over. It was very good. It was nice, as Jakub said, minimalist. That's the key thing for Warchuck's writing, because I'm not even going to attempt pronouncing his surname. But that's the key point to it. Really short, snappy sentences, and it works really well. His prose flows quite nicely. As far as his intentions and meaning for the book, I think we'll get into that a bit later with the film. But it's a strange one, you know. Me personally, I've never been beaten or will beat anyone in a physical fight. Maybe like checkers or something. But, I'm not very good at that. But as sort of a depiction of the values of sort of hyper masculinity, it is quite an interesting dissection of it, essentially. There's a nice twist, it's got its nice twists and turns. I think a lot of people know about the twist. It's like Seven-esque level of like, people know what happens. But I'm still surprised by the twist in the book, having seen the film several times before. And that's just a sign of good writing, essentially. It's pretty good. I wouldn't read it again, but I'm glad I've read it.
Makes you forget what you already know. Now, before we go, actually,
reading the book.
Question. So you haven't been in a fist fight, right, Ewan?
Not that I can recall.
Oh my
However, I did spend.
It's the concussion, probably. Then.
Who? I did spend a period in 2019 absolutely blisteringly drunk, so I don't think I have been.
You neither, Jakub?
No, I don't think I have been in a fist fight. I've been in a few situations where it was this close to me being in a fist fight, but I think I usually kind of diffuse these things by virtue of being absolutely massive. So there was this one time when someone came over and tried to kind of just beat the shit out of my cousin. So I just stepped in and said, like, hey, how about you try someone a little bit bigger? And I just walked towards him, and he actually tried to take a swing at me, but he didn't he actually thought it was a better idea not to. So, no, he was just like standing there with his fist ready to go. So I just kept walking at him like the Terminator. I was just like, "What are you gonna do?" So he grabbed my shirt and I just kept walking and just kept walking backwards, and eventually he just ran away. So you can do a lot by just being imposing. And I was just like, "Shit, okay, let's move out, guys."
Wait, so are you saying violence isn't always the answer?
Sometimes it is.
Aggressive walking is the answer by the sound of it.
Aggressive,
Just start
just
walking towards them.
the imposing presence.
No, it's not the violence that's the answer. I think it's the threat of violence is sometimes more than enough. Your conviction that you're just like, I have nothing to lose here, guys. So like you make your bed.
Yeah, and sleep in it.
Yeah.
My thoughts on Fight Club. I have to say it's interesting because I've read like it's so hard. I think even more so than with other books that we've tackled here to separate it from the movie. Because the movie is kind of like Clockwork Orange, it's such an iconic status that talking about the book in itself, it's tough, but I have to say again, I was aware of it. I remember like some of the controversies when the sequel novel came out a few years ago as well, that people thought was unnecessary. I was like, oh yeah, this is a book after all. And so I was excited going into this to kind of figure out what's the deal with Fight Club and with this author. And generally speaking, I enjoyed this book quite a lot. I think it has. I have a soft spot for minimalist style. I mean, we've had you, Jakub, on the No Country for Old Men episode talking about Cormac McCarthy.
Yes.
Like we gravitate towards these writers basically, almost unwillingly so, of just short sentences, straight to the point, like going back with the paragraphs constantly, having the action moving, not losing yourself in descriptions of places, of people's just looks and clothes and all of that. It's something that really appeals to me even as a writer. I like these sort of things. I like just the immediacy of everything. But it felt a little bit more like a gimmick. Not even, I mean, it is style, but almost a bit gimmicky, in my opinion. The way that the entire novel is written, and you have this constant, moving backwards and forward in time, and there's the flashback, and he's just jumping around city from city to city, and he repeats a lot of words, a lot of sentences, a lot of different sayings, which is fascinating, which is interesting. But I can see this working so much better in the shorter format as a short story, because it's short and sweet. As a full novel of like 250 pages, more or less, I won't lie, I was getting a bit tired of it towards the end. But it's actually something that I want to link with the movie as well, because this takes some twists and turns that I like but don't love with the second half of the story. But overall, I like this. I like this. And I kind of I wanted to talk a little bit about just the style of narration before we go straight into the themes themselves of the story, because it's very erratic. You are reading this narrator's first person thoughts as he's going through life, and it's just so spellbinding. You both said it's hard to put down, and I agree. It just captures you and ensnares you in this web of just acts. Like it's an action book in the sense that it's all about like things happening, things moving forward, people talking, and going and doing this thing and doing that thing. How did you feel about this style, both of you? I know you, Jakub, really liked it, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, on the style, I wanted to kind of quickly touch on. It will make more sense once you listen to the guy speak.
Because when you speak like this, more or less.
Yeah, he's very sort of. It looks like he has like 100 thoughts a minute.
He's very quick.
No, but then he's very sort of propulsive, and like what sells me on, like, okay, well, apart from the minimalist style in his writing, there's one thing that he also does in his spoken word, which is also, I mean, for me, this is a trait of a great writer, is to create great analogies, like great similes, great analogies to kind of, like when you describe a situation, it's just, it smelled like, I don't know, the room smelled awful, or the room smelled like, I don't. A good writer will make an analogy that resonates with you, Like, you know, oh, this felt like a cigarette being extinguished in the back of your throat or something like this. And he uses these sort of very vivid, gross sort of comparisons, and he does it on purpose because he wants you to kind of just be shocked into certain things. He wants you to be on the edge of your seat even as you're reading. So I think it's part of the allure. I think when you say, I would say, like, oh, it's not the same way as I said when we were talking about the Cormac McCarthy book, but I would say his style is also quite cinematic. I wouldn't call it gimmicky because I think it's also it's part of how he speaks, how he interacts with the world, and how he writes, because he doesn't type. Like, this is something that he doesn't do. What I learned, he makes shorthand notes. He hates, like, the guy. This is a guy who hates writing. Like, he's just like, oh, if you put me in a room, like he says he makes his typing work done on airplanes because he hates doing it otherwise. He has like thousands of notes everywhere. He will just write everywhere, and he has notebooks, legal pads, post-its, whatever. And then once he actually, okay, well, I think I've got enough, so he has to be forced into a room to sit down and type it out, and then just put it together into something more coherent. So, like, even like when you say, oh yeah, it was written as a short story first, like the short story that it was written, it's chapter 6 in the book. That was the original short story. And then he had other short stories, kind of just little scenes just sprinkled throughout, and he just brings them together. So it kind of looks like they're a little bit sort of mosaic-y, I think, for lack of a better word. But to me, this gels because they're incredibly cinematic, like, because he uses these recurring sentences to kind of keep you at the rhythm. Like, you wake up at the LAX, you wake up in Detroit, you wake up in O'Hare, you wake up in somewhere, and just keeps you going. And he describes, and then it puts you in the mindset of someone who doesn't sleep, who has a severe mental derangement going on, and then who, as it turns out, well, spoiler alert, develops a split personality disorder, right?
Oh my.
Although it's in the first sentence of the book. If you think about it, this is how cheeky he is. Like, well, when you have a barrel of a gun in your mouth, you think only in vowels. I know this because Tyler knows this, right?
Yeah. The
And
foreshadowing is strong through the entire book.
and see, these sentences like this, like, when you have a barrel of a gun in your mouth, you think only in vowels. This is the type of stylistic writing that I kind of gravitate to in his writing. I like this sort of, because it puts an image in your head. Like, you immediately think about what it feels like the cold, to have the cold steel between your teeth. It's very visual, it's very visceral, and I kind of like that. Like, this is the type of style that really kind of speaks to me. So that's why I think I'm going to be looking for more of his books in my local library. Although I don't think they have many more.
Oh no, that's a shame. That's a shame.
Yeah, our library shut down. So
No.
Assholes.
Welcome to the Northeast, where books and reading don't need to. I do agree with a lot of that sentiment, especially the insomnia aspect. I thought that was probably the most interesting point of the book for me, was the stress of a job and the insomnia of it, and how we search for outlets and what we do to essentially de-stress. And, you know, I've had my quibbles with work. I don't think I'd join a fight club. But it is interesting to see what people, or rather what Chuck thinks people would do to alleviate problems that are, at the time, when you have something like that, just it feels unsolvable. It's quite scary and quite terrifying, and what that drives people to do, and how it can have such a mental effect. I think that's really well written. The minimalist style really, you know, it responds well to it. What I do think is a bit difficult to swallow is the sort of satire of essentially hypermasculism and toxic masculinity and machoism, where the only way to really understand it and sort of take it apart is to engage with it on some level. And I'm not fully convinced that it engages with it in a way that makes its criticisms either not justified, but different to just engaging with hypermasculinity. Fight Club, as a sort of satire of masculinity, is just the masculinity part of it, but with some jaded lines thrown in. Which is a shame, because right at the core of it, on the other side, is like a really good line of dialogue to follow, which is essentially a man dealing with the stress put on him by, you know, the masculinity that's presented itself as mandatory rather than optional. But yeah,
let's talk about the theme of this novel, because I think, like, straight up, like, is this a satire? Is it not? This is like there have been multiple points of contentions, multiple ways of looking at this story. Like, is it making fun of these things? Is it glorifying them? Is it taking them seriously? Is it showing them in a very dark way? Because for listeners who don't know, and if you don't know, like, why don't you just
What are
go
you
read the
doing?
book, go watch them? What are you doing here? But for those who forgot, probably, it's been a few years. You saw the movie, but it came out, and you haven't since. The Fight Club degenerates into becoming a full-blown terrorist cell. They just start causing, like, they create this Project Mayhem, helmed by Tyler Durden, who's actually, the narrator, and they just cause havoc around first one city and then multiple cities, and then basically the entire United States. It's a network of terrorists where everyone has been part of one fight club or another. Everyone has been doing awful things to, like, I don't know, get revenge against the system on paper, but it's very, very deranged. And I personally, like, I find it troubling, when some people see this as being very good. When people analyze the book and see this is, yeah, we kind of need a fight club. That'd be cool. I'm kind of doing those things. Yeah, I dig it. It's like, okay, just keep them at the harm's way.
Did you
But
guys read,
yes,
by the way, did you guys read the version of the book the edition where Chuck Palahniuk
yes.
wrote an afterword for it?
yeah.
After the success of the movie, yes,
Yes.
which is very scary.
I mean, but
Um,
it's enlightening when you actually hear or read what the man has to say about this. So
mhm.
it will probably give you a few answers about what
Yeah.
you're wondering, right?
Yeah, but like all of this goes back to one character, Tyler Durden. So, very heavy question, I know. But Ewan, how do you feel about this Tyler Durden and the way that he embodies everything wrong with contemporary masculinity? Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty easy
In a
question then.
general
Thanks for
sense.
that one. I think overall it's a depiction that sort of works on a foundational level, especially in the film, which we'll get to later. But it reminds me a lot of American Psycho, when sort of people would see Patrick Bateman and think, "Oh, that's me," and if you think that, you need mental help.
There are a few CEOs who would probably think that still.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. But they're more appreciative of like the cologne regime rather than anything
They'll be like,
nefarious.
fuck
The
yeah,
prostitutes.
I like these business cards. Yeah.
You know what? The cream one. Oh, delightful. Tasty. But from a sense of violence being a solution rather than an issue, I think a lot of films and a lot of media, especially Fight Club, the book, I do think it has earnest intentions at its heart, displaying Tyler Durden as this sort of the other side, really. It's like the left brain, right brain type thing, where it's like the left side's the very monotonous, insomnia-driven workaholic that's really crying out for an escape, and the right side of his brain's exploding into this big vision of Tyler Durden as an anarchist, essentially. And it's such a nice angle to follow that has... I don't know if it was because of the way it was written or because we're essentially biased because of contemporary views on Fight Club and we know the audience that like it, where it's either a really, really interesting commentary that doesn't quite get to grips with what it means, or it's just really annoying because we know the type of people that like Tyler Durden.
So what's the type of people that like Tyler Durden? Just to clarify,
the people that think Joker represents them. That's the easiest way of putting it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the people that saw Joker and thought, yeah, let's rally in the streets, let's set fire to things, let's be an anarchist, let's fight against the powers that be, but then they don't know what to do after that. They don't really know what's going on. They're just fighting for the sake of it. And I think Tyler Durden's a really good representation of that. I don't think it's like when the Fight Club turns into the big web of terrorist cells, it's like it feels almost accidental in a way, where it's just escalating and nobody knows how to stop it. Where Tyler, yeah, he's the clear leader, but he's the narrator. He's really just a figment of war. What you call him? What's the guy's name? I don't even know the guy's name.
He doesn't have a name.
The
Yeah, that's the one,
narrator.
yeah.
Because he's
The
every one
narrator,
of
yeah.
us. That's
He
the
is.
twist. He
It
could be
doesn't
me.
matter who he
All
is.
his heart.
Could be you.
It's
He's an average guy.
Cornelius.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the average
Cornelius.
guy mentality. But the average guy mentality, really, it's better suited to something like Office Space. That's the average guy, not bloody Tyler Durden. Nobody's going to be setting fire to buildings or blowing them up. You're going to be stuck in an office. You're going to be slaving away, working hours and hours, like the narrator. You're not Tyler Durden. And as soon as people realise that that's the flip, that they are the narrator rather than Tyler Durden, that's when the fun begins. That's when they sort of settle down. I think it's, I don't know about, like, as Tyler Durden is just an example of violence in the media. I think it's a really good example of sort of how popular it can be and how that does lead to sort of misconstrued views and sort of poor ramifications. But I think overall, especially in the book, it's like it's all right. It's I think the minimalism. Please cut that out, Nick, from the edit. The minimalism.
Will I?
This is staying.
Someone, I did another podcast. I tried to say hull. I had some sort of mental breakdown halfway through it. I just like tipped over like hull. But
Do you want this cut out as well?
Just cut all my parts out of the record, and that'd be lovely. What was I on about? Yeah, Tyler Durden's kind of like the fuck. I don't even know what was on about. Jack, what do you think? Jakub, not Jack. Oh my god.
No,
It's the sugar rush.
It's the sugar rush. It's the 3 cans of Coke and the 2 coffees. So Carson, what do you think?
Yeah, Jakub. Yeah, you go. You go.
And Carson would hate this book, but anyway.
I don't know if he likes the movie. Carson, if you like the movie, just drop a message. Let us know.
You know what? See, this is where I'm troubled because I have like the film made out of this book and the book itself have grown a reputation around them.
Oh, yes.
And I'm not necessarily sure I agree with that the reputation is rooted in anything more substantial, or if whatever it's rooted in is heavily politically slanted. Because if you actually listen to the guy who wrote it about what this book's trying to be about, what he thinks, what the author thinks the book is supposed to be about, and he doesn't really tell you, oh yeah, you should read it this way, but he was. I think when you say left brain, right brain, by the way, I think a good comparison for me is the sort of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? That's the sort of the canonical sort of comparison you can draw. However, as a result, like the book, as we said, like it's pretty much split in half because you have this sort of idea of here's a guy who's lashing out against whatever happens to it in his life, the frustrations of his daily existence, and he develops this sort of alter ego and develops a way to cope with what the Germans in the 19th century called the Weltschmerz, the pain of the world, right? Because he can't sleep. He goes to these like therapy sessions, where people are dying, and just all of a sudden he feels better. But it's a symptom of something, right? And I think I do agree with like sort of like the Joker is sort of like the same avatar as well. It represents similar things to what Tyler Durden represents. However, like no one really asks a question: why do people kind of identify with this thing, or why is it so why does it speak so strongly to a certain category of people, specific category of men? And the book addresses this straight on. Again, there are sentences in here. We are a generation of men raised by women. We don't have male role models. And this book's Chuck Palahniuk talks about this. Like fascinating conversations he had. 2 conversations with Joe Rogan, by the way. We should totally listen to this. He talks on the one from I think 2018. He talks about Fight Club quite a bit.
Is there a way of listening to it without Joe Rogan on it as well?
I mean,
or is he stuck there?
Like you kind of have. I don't know. You kind of have to. I don't know. Maybe this is me just because I don't agree with Joe Rogan on many things, but he's an interesting fella. As in, like he's knowledgeable about many things, and he can ask interesting questions, and he lets his guests speak. Like he's always respectful towards them.
Yeah, but so does Graham Norton.
Yeah, but then Graham Norton like works in these like 3.5 minute skits. Like you can't get an honest conversation about out of anything that's kind of happening on the BBC, right? So when you hear about what he was trying to do was, one of the missions of the book is to give men something, like a bit of a cultural sort of mirror to look into, to find something to relate to, because he says women get books about being a woman almost 3 a month. Like there's always something for women. Men don't get this sort of like there's no sisterhood of traveling pants for men.
There
right?
is, isn't there?
Not really.
Lord of the Rings.
No,
Lord of
it's
the
not.
Rings, like
Well,
it's
No, I'm
Lord,
joking. I'm joking. You're right,
fantasy.
though.
yeah,
You know.
find me a book that actually speaks specifically to men about being a man. Like it's very rare that you see these things. Even like
It's
when
like
you
the old classics, like The Outsiders and things like that.
yeah, so
Still very few and far between.
exactly. So there isn't much, and then you kind of need to kind of do this. Like, well, every generation of men should probably have something like this, because it's difficult to relate to something that was written 100 years ago, because whoever wrote it didn't live in a world that you live in. So he couldn't relate to the problems that you're having, because the world's different. Like he would have, I don't know, two parents in his house, I don't know, and it will be a different sort of conversation between you and someone who, I don't know, lived 100 years ago. You wouldn't have anything in common, right? And then so the book's kind of just split in half in my mind, as in like one is about this sort of idea of dealing with this with the fact that many men are raised without a male role model. So it's about this sort of finding this sort of the father in your life. So either, well, apart from the father who gave life to you, the father, there should be someone in, and he talks about this, there should be someone in your life who assumes this role later on in life, a teacher, a coach, someone, right? There's always someone in your life, or there should be someone in your life to kind of just guide you throughout the sort of the different types of, who will give you different types of values than your father would, and if, or an additional set of values than your father would. And if the father in the first place wasn't present in your life, you don't have these values, because, well, these values would be instilled by women in your life. That's nothing bad, because single moms do a stand-up job, and they're absolute heroes.
Yep.
However, women don't think the same way as men do, and it's just a little bit different. So men don't have this sort of the dynamic anymore. And so the idea of, I think this is where it's being warped, because I think that Tyler Durden sort of the types of people who gravitate to this, you could actually say that probably there will be predominantly men, predominantly single, predominantly raised by single moms. They don't have male role models in life, and they feel like they're consumed by frustration because they're failures. They can't put stuff together and make it work. Same, and it's the same. I mean, it's just, it looks to me like when you talk about, oh, it's the Joker is doing the same thing. To me, this is tragic, because, well, you could argue that we haven't really addressed this as a society. We haven't really looked into a problem of what happens to men when they don't really know how to develop themselves into something useful. They don't enjoy male camaraderie. They don't know what to do with their life. They don't know how to make a success of themselves. They will grow frustrated, and then they will then grow frustrated because, well, women don't want to date them. They don't want to have relationships with them. They don't want to have sex with them, and then they'll just think all of a sudden that this is somehow someone else's fault, because no one's ever told them, or no one's ever guided them into the world and say, look, if you do this, things will happen. If you persevere, if you like learn the discipline yourself, or do something with your life, things will happen to you. You'll be a happier man. And this is to me, like, the book already addresses this in the mid-90s, and we have done absolute jack about this as a society, because, well, and the book addresses it head on as well, because these men who go to these fight clubs, it's a specific kind of men. These are all blue-collared, white-collar workers, all kinds of men, of types of people who are unsuccessful. They're not the sort of the chiefs of police. They're not the sort of directors of banks. They're not owners of hotels. These are people these people go after. These are the people who make the world go round. They're making the world function, right? They're the people who collect your posts, who take your rubbish away, There are the people who serve you at your restaurant. There are the people who fix your plumbing when it goes wrong. There are the people who fix your car, right? And these are the people that we frequently look down upon. It's like, look, he hasn't got an education. Look at him. Like, you know, no one's ever like smiling at a bin man because, you know, like, look at him, what a failure he is. Like, you know, and I feel this book actually address the book and the film, the whole concept of Fight Club as a novel, as a story, addresses this, and then just gives people who really don't have anyone to talk to someone to talk to. And then also, in the other half, sorry for rambling, satirizes the sort of the mechanic in a male brain that makes us like overdo something that's worth doing. Like, do you know the saying? What's worth doing is worth overdoing. This is a very male thing to do. So men tend to have this sort of tendency. If you actually get, I don't know, if we find something that we like, we tend to kind of just, okay, well, I don't know, I like motorbikes, and then snap, I've got 150 motorbikes in my garage. Like, this is not uncommon, right? Like, if you have the means, you'll eventually just whatever passion you find will eventually consume you, because if you're just left unchecked. So that's also the balance of, well, you can, which is where, say, the character of like Marla Singer comes into it, because a woman is someone who tempers the man and civilizes them, and then these people who end up in Project Mayhem, these are still these people who just the women don't care about, and then they figure out, like, Fight Club is all I can, or is all I have in my life, and then just becomes like a self-fulfilling sort of, like a self-propelling sort of machinery, like a snowballing sort of machine. It's fascinating.
It's like a mixture between a cult and an army.
Yeah, but I think so. To come back to what Ewan was saying, I think the first half is taking a serious look at a serious problem, and the second half satirizes how this can go off, come off, like the wheels can come off of it. So I'll put it that way.
Yeah, one thing that I find incredibly fascinating about what you said, which is kind of what I love about the entire like first part of your statement, it's the social anti-capitalist element of this book, which I think is what some of the people that you mentioned gravitate towards, because it's a fantasy and it's a powerful one. Like, you're a waiter working in a restaurant. It's a work that everyone shits over. You're like, you're just useless. You're just pointless. Oh, I'm useless. I'm pointless. I can piss in your soup. I can spit in your coffee. I can absolutely wreck your dinner and you wouldn't even notice. Like, oh, you think like the garbage man isn't an important job, something that you can scoff at? What if I'm not working this day? Like, the streets are littered with trash. And it's all these elements that are taken to the extreme, to a dangerous extreme in the novel for a reason. But I can see this being very appealing for someone who's living a frustrated life of, not having quote unquote accomplished anything in the world, of not leaving your mark in it, which I think is also kind of what the narrator is looking for. It's like he's not leaving a mark. Like, if you were to die in the plane accident that he fantasizes about, or anything, or any of the other weird suicidal thoughts that he has throughout the novel, no one would miss him. It wouldn't be.
It's not about the suicide. It's about the fact that he just says to you straight on again that he's alone.
Precisely. You don't know anything about this background, and I think the fact that he doesn't even have a name makes him incredibly relatable, because he's a nobody. Therefore, he is everyone.
Oh, he's nobody. He's everyone, and then as well. Well, as a man who has nothing to lose is incredibly dangerous.
Oh, yes.
Right? And then, to me, this is an interesting commentary, because it's not like, I don't like, if you listen to the guy speak, or just like actually pay attention even to the afterword, you'll actually see that it's not something that he's not a revolutionary. He doesn't really want people to like rise up and say like, we need to just flip the table, because if the game's rigged, if the game's tilted in someone else's favor, the only way you can do is either not play the game or flip the table, right?
Yeah.
And this is it describes this, but I'm not sure it's trying to like encourage this in any way. I feel this is just almost like a reflection of this is what's happening in our society. How about we have a think about this, right? Because you can't have a world without men, just as you can't have a world without women. We need balance in life, and then we like we had to spend a lot of time to care about women more because they've been neglected for a very long while. But we can't do this at the expense of something else. We can't let the pendulum swing too much to the other extreme because we'll have different types of problems. We have to find balance in these things, and then the reason I think he's actively looking at this because things like this happen. If people have nothing to lose, then revolutions happen, and then if people actually find that they gravitate to this because well, you would call them like, oh, incels this, incels that. Well, great, but this should actually force us to have a think about this. Like, what do we do about these folks that clearly need help?
Burn
Like
them.
they need something, right? Like they're active. Like I mean, and this is onto us. Like we're three guys, right?
Yeah.
Men need to do something to help other men, and Fight Club is sort of like a mechanism as to do this, right? Like there are people who like organize like man sheds for people in their 50s and 60s because old men don't have friends. They're alone, just as by fiat. Just that's just what happens because we tend to obsess over our jobs, to put food on the table, to get the kids through school, and then we sacrifice our own relationships outside of our families, and people kind of just move away and do other things, and we don't have any friends when we're 65. So there are people who just will organize these sort of get-togethers for men to be around other men.
Mm-hmm. What I find very scary as well is that, like, even nowadays, I go to, like, with work, we've had some meetings to do with like other people my age in their 20s, and a common point of the common point that's raised almost every meeting is that there's no real place to like meet new people or meet up with or just stay idle. Like if you're not going to a bar or a cafe or a pub or any of those places, like there's no real way to know others that's healthy, that doesn't involve alcohol, that doesn't involve
Gyms. I'm telling you, gyms.
Yeah, but even the gym is it's potentially dangerous environment. Like all
What kind
like
of gyms do you have in?
I'm really scared to go over there.
toxic behaviors. I'll just say that I've seen that firsthand a little bit. But just yeah, there's no real places to just be together with other people that are not, like the churches and the bars and the places and everything.
Like weirdly enough, like women are much better at this because I think women are like more geared towards like I feel like I'm like I'm trying to kind of just be Jordan Peterson here, but I just feel like the women have are more natural about finding relationships, right? And it's more important for women than it is for men. We're more likely, like I'm more likely to be consumed by a task. Like I'll spend weeks upon weeks developing a podcast or just working on something I'm writing or something like this, or even on my job I'll just do something like that. Whereas say someone like my wife would be spending her sort of energy capital on just maintaining relationships with other people, which I don't do, right? So, and like women have it a little bit easier because then they'll just like, I don't know, she will go to a playground and then she'll meet someone, right?
But I think that's also an interesting part of the book and of Palahniuk's just way of looking at the world and criticizing contemporary society is that it is very heavily constricted by gender norms.
It
because
is, yes.
Men cannot be friends, in the way women can be friends. It's kind of the usual, like women can hug and kiss each other, and everyone will say they're good friends. But if men do it, they're gay. If you cry, you're a sissy, and all of those things. Like, but women can cry all times. They're emotional, just leave it at that. And that's kind of the thing because like the narrator doesn't have any outlet for his emotions. It doesn't have anything going on in his life outside of depression and insomnia
and work
just the most
which is
boring
depressing as hell as well if you think about what he's doing.
just so horrible the way it's screwing over other people, up from tragedies. And so what happens? Just one day one guy tells him, I want you to hit me as hard as you can. And through violence, through the punching, through Fight Club, he can feel something, and other people who participate start feeling something again. And it becomes, in their sick, twisted way, the only healthy way to, be free, which is scary. And it's scary considering that, like, there's gangs, like, I remember here in my city, in Italy, gangs of teenagers used to plan brawls through Facebook events.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like, we're meeting in this place and we're gonna meet up, and we're even friends, some of us, and we know each other, and we're gonna meet up to punch each other. And it's an absolute miracle that no one has died yet from these things, and the police tries to stop them, but in its own twisted way, it's a fight club. These teenagers, obsessed with media, internet, relevance or whatever, the only way to feel something that is real is violence, which is incredibly disturbing. And I want to take this opportunity to jump into the movie.
Wait.
Well,
No,
just one more thing. I wanted to kind of just jump off of this.
I've got to
Ewan,
reply to the past 15 minutes of what nonsense I've just heard. Oh, right. Yeah,
Jakub,
you go.
Super quick.
I just wanted to kind of quickly say this on the sort of last note that you said about these sort of like, oh well, like you have boys actually trying to organize these sort of impromptu fight clubs. This is again comes back to the fact that the books talking about men raised by women without male role models, teachers, senseis, coaches, whoever, like talking, because like it's you're way more likely if a father figure will recognize this energy in a boy who says, I used to have this energy that needs to be directed. You can't suppress it. If you suppress it, it ends up being propelled eventually into Project Mayhem. You need to direct it, and you need to let it loose on something productive, on something useful. It's like you need to teach the boy to be a warrior, not by punching other people on the street. Go sign up to a gym. Get the boy into a martial arts class. I don't know. Get him to join a sports club. Something. Just let this energy out somehow. And then this is a problem because these boys then grow up to become men who don't know what to do with this energy, and this energy becomes frustration, and this frustration becomes anger. Anger becomes hate. Hate leads to violence. Yeah, that's what I want to say anyway.
Yeah, so there was a lot of process that I sort of wanted to hear what he's had to say. I can't remember it all because there was a lot of information.
Sensory overload.
Yeah,
sorry for rambling. Sorry.
No, it's all right. I like it when it goes in rambles because I don't particularly agree with a lot of it, but I was interested in listening to it.
What did you not agree with?
I don't think, especially the bit about there's not much literature for men. There is a lot of literature for men,
such as
a lot. I mean, I've read 81 books this year, Fight Club being the most recent. The very first one was science fiction, really shit science fiction. But a lot of books, if you want specific examples, I'm thinking like the collected works of Irvin Welsh, the entire James Bond collection.
No, just okay. Well, James Bond again. Like this is from the 50s and 60s. Something that's contemporary. Something that's written by a man, say,
well, I don't know because I don't read contemporary fiction. I've never really wanted to because I can get information that applies to me now from literature from old. Like I read Death of a Salesman recently, and that put me on the right track with how I felt about my career. I read a lot of Joan Didion because her work is very inspiring. I think
like Irvine Welsh, you could say yes. Fair enough. It's a book. It's a book written by a man for men in the early 90s. That's 30 years ago. Where's the 2022?
Do you need a 2020 version though? Because I've never once
we need
thought
one periodically every 5 to 10 years. There should be something that just speaks to men. It's fine to speak to men, but for some reason, someone speaks to men, it becomes like, oh, this is toxic because it's not involving everyone. No, it's okay. Some things are okay if they're aimed just at men.
It's satirizing what shouldn't happen. It's speaking to men, saying that, oh yeah, just hop on a fight club, beat shit out of each other. It's not right. It's not healthy, and it's like you said, there is an energy to it, like where you got to go and join taekwondo or something. It's like I never did. I was fine with that. I've
but
got
you're
that
right.
energy,
you're directing it different ways. Like it doesn't have to be physical. This doesn't have to transgress into like a physical aggression that you need to direct and punch something useful, right? This energy is productivity that you can just you do insane amounts of writing that I don't even know where you get the time to do this, but that's the same thing.
Okay, I understand that.
Do you get me now?
That.
Like that's the
I understand the energy thing, but it's kind of like
The productive energy. You have to, like, young boys have this. I can't speak for girls because I'm not a girl, so I don't know. But I can speak on behalf of what I know as a boy who grew up to be a man. That I just had this sort of, and then it was very useful for me to have role models to look up to.
Yeah, I understand. Absolutely.
This is a good idea.
Role models are really important to look up to, but it's kind of like the role models I look up to are men raised by predominantly women, like Jarvis Cocker or Michael Caine. Michael Caine's dad died when he was in his 20s, and it's from there essentially he became an embodiment of.
Doesn't matter how he was raised, but he becomes a role model for you. That's all that matters, right?
But then on the flip side of that, I've got role models like Oriana Scaleci and Joan Didion who are monumental and sincerely some of the best writers I've read, which is why I don't think you need a modern. Every 5 or 10 years, we need a mandatory fight club.
We don't need a fight club. We need a book,
but something to talk about the modern
right?
experience. But I don't think we do, because you can get modern experiences from old literature. It's why I continue to read old literatures, because I can find things in there, lines and dialogue and experiences and ideas and messages that can be applied to the real world. And I think that's where I've got little sympathy for people that read Fight Club or Jordan Peterson and think, yeah, that's for me. I think just from how I was raised, I just get that's kind of like my perspective is that
if you listen to people who actually read like Jordan Peterson and think that's for me, and then you actually hear what they have to say, you'd probably think, wow, I mean,
so that was
good
the thing.
For you. That it actually makes you want to get up in the morning and make your
absolutely.
bed, right?
Yeah. But then I went and read 12 Rules for Life after I'd heard loads of people say, wow, what a monumental book. And the first 40 pages of that is Jordan Peterson talking about lobsters. And I know it's a metaphor.
Wow. I mean, he does have a tendency of just to kind of get lost in his own.
I'll just put it on the record
bullshit.
So nobody knows any different. Jordan Peterson's a fucking goon. What a tit. I read his book and it's so like not even middle of the road. It's fine. I think it's fine to. I don't know. I don't know if it is fine or not, because there's a lot of young men reading that and thinking, "Wow, what a profound character and a great idea." And most of the advice is make your bed. Clean up after yourself, you filthy pig.
Well,
and I guess I know people need to process that in different ways. But if you need 400 pages of a book by a white guy going clean up after yourself, don't lay in your trough. Don't
those
get
books
out.
Are scam.
I mean, but then again, who am I to put someone down who for something, for learning something that's fundamental? Like,
because the implication is that's a modern book.
Keep doing more. Just don't stop. Like you're on the right track. I know you start. Just because they started late doesn't matter.
It's not a matter of starting late or anything. I think it's the matter of what track they may go down if they are influenced by Fight Club and Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan. That variety of the spectrum does undeniably lead to rather dangerous behavior.
No, it focuses you on something, and then if it.
But it's not entirely positive, especially not Peterson's.
Making your bed is not
positive. Who's the
guy?
What's his name? Andrew Tate, that knobhead who doesn't drink sparkling water and he thinks women are just objects and stuff. People are pushed down to that avenue. I always associate Andrew Tate with Jordan Peterson, that mob over there. Not their ideas, but the people that look up to them. And I think it's rather telling that the same people that are reading Jordan Peterson are the people following Andrew Tate on Instagram. And it's like his advice is, if you have a heart attack, just get back up and have some water. Which is like the extreme of it. That's what I mean. I think the extreme of it's really dangerous, and it's something that gets highlighted quite a lot. But the extreme is
only this big. Like there's a vast sort of expanse of just doing the right things at the right time to better yourself, and then that's fine. And then I think there's the whole Jordan Peterson's Palahniuk sort of thing is blown out of proportion, because if someone speaks to men, some people specifically on a fringes of the left will assume that they speak against women. Not true, because I mean, like this is also something that's been held at Palahniuk, that he's a misogynist. No, he's not.
This though is that you don't have to have a man writing for men. Women can write for men, and old books can write for men also.
Well, yes, equally, men could write for women, but then again, you do that now, then you get into trouble. Because it's like, why is this man talking to me?
I wouldn't say trouble. I don't know about that.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with women writing for men, but then again, there's also there should be some. I don't know. It should not be a cultural taboo all of a sudden when a man writes for a man. That's fine. And then
but it's I think just from experience from my end, it's the books that have been written specifically for men have not been.
Minutes, is it?
It's not going to be 90 minutes, though. The books that I've read specifically for men are not positive. The most positive I can think is the Scottish comedian Limmy. who wrote very openly and very frankly about his mental health and his alcoholism.
Could this be partly because the existence that people who write for men go through is not entirely positive either. Like if you think about Irvine Welsh, for instance, writing for the sort of slacker generation of heroin addicts in middle of nowhere Edinburgh and Glasgow, for instance, that doesn't mean that it's talking to men about men and about men's problems and about.
But it's talking to let's be fair, the people reading Irvine Welsh are people like us. We're not going to be falling into the throes of Scottish junkies.
Well, heroin addicts don't read, but then again, this whole thing extends into films, into other forms, into music. People listen to specific bands because songs speak to them, or the persona singing, like I don't know, Chester in Linkin Park would speak to certain kinds of men because, well, he's also depressed like me, or his songs speak to me because I'm also alone. I feel numb inside. I don't know. This is
yeah. No, absolutely.
As a whole, it's fine, but it also illustrates if all these books for men theoretically, you think that they're just they're not entirely positive. No, they illustrate a not entirely positive aspect of society that continues not to be fixed.
The correlation though between men reading Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate and stuff, and men being absolute clusterfucks and annoying, there is a correlation. Let's be fair.
I mean, in all fairness, Andrew Tate on I don't know. I see this guy pop up on YouTube, and I realized, by the way, that the reason he does is because he's running a pyramid scheme.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. So it's like
it's everywhere. Like you can't get away with it because people will get likes for doing this, and then they'll just repost his stuff and they'll get kickbacks, and it's ridiculous. It's everywhere.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Like I keep like just getting like I'm not interested in this content like 20 times a day, so it just my feed cleans up. It doesn't. Anyway.
Wow, what a lovely tangent.
Anyways, the point is, men don't need literature. They've got enough as is. Get through our pile, and then away we go.
Sports.
I mean, for instance, something like Joker or The Joker, I don't remember. So you could say, oh, is this again like Fight Club for men only in film form? Probably yes. And why is it again the same? Because we continue not to fix the problem with giving young men direction in life, so they don't grow into incels who don't know how to actually hold a job or make something of themselves.
Of the parents, though, and you can't just throw somebody into literature. If you like, my parents raised me, and I didn't really bother with literature or films and stuff until I was sort of at uni, and I think I turned out okay.
No, but then you're.
I'm a bit of
a dad. You are the
Look, I as a dad, I could give my son a book or a film. It's like, here, read this. Oh, I think you'll like it. That's all you need. This is the role model sort of behavior, right? Or do you know what? Let's go for a walk and just talk about something like this. This is something that many men don't have because their parents either are not there, they're split up, or they're all working 18 hours a day and they just literally don't have time. So it's clear again. It comes back to a problem with society. It's a little bit deeper, right? Like how do you establish a situation where a man has time for their son, for instance, so they can actually spend a Sunday morning when he's not physically exhausted. And then still has time. Okay, let's. I don't know. How's your day? How's school? Like these, like many men young boys don't hear these questions from their dads because they're either not there, or they're working, or they're tired, or they're asleep because they've worked all night, for instance, because they're trying to put food on the table, or they don't care. So it's clearly a massive problem with the society at large that we don't address. And these books, these films, they kind of just illustrate like it's still a problem, guys. And then all we just do is demonize the work of art and say like, oh, it's propelling incels to do stuff. Like, no, I mean, if it does, that means we should probably do something about it, not just keep demonizing the art. The art is just a reflection of who they are.
But even then, it's not just people that don't have role models as fathers. They could be raised perfectly fine and they'll still think like that if they feel entitled to it. If they feel entitled to a certain way or behaviour or a type of living, then they will gun for it and they will step on anybody that gets in their way of that.
I would argue if someone's raised right and then has their energy propelled into something productive, they would look at a character of Tyler Durden and they would feel nothing but contempt.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
it's all, again, it all comes back to the early point of the people that think Patrick Bateman is cool are the problem.
Yeah, but this is coming back to say, like, having your moral compass set right, and then you can't set it. I mean, you can. It's difficult to set it right yourself without a massive trial and error bout, right?
But
yeah,
is there not? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you'd finished. Sorry, go on.
it's all right. No.
Sorry, my point was going to be when you think of sort of like the Joker or the Fight Club or the American Psycho examples, just sort of catering, sort of media catering to men. There is a lot of it. It's just a lot of it's not being seen by men. Like I always think of sort of the films of Mike Leigh and Ken Loach and stuff. They are really strong representations of how it is. Sorry We Missed You, which came out a couple of years ago, was an extremely touching, moving example of working class life. A man talking to a man, an absent father, the whole routine that we've just spoken of there. And it doesn't engage with violence. It doesn't engage with fear tactics or attitudes towards women because it finds the stuff that American Psycho and Fight Club and Jordan Peterson peddle fucking repugnant. And instead it focuses on the family dynamic, how it can be fixed. So I think the problem isn't that there's not enough media for men. It's that the media that there is currently is focusing in on what they want to see rather than what they need to hear. Sorry We Missed You and Joker are appealing to the same crowd, essentially. They're appealing to men without direction that need direction. One of them is talking to them in a very delicate situation, saying, this is how life is, this is how you can improve on it. And the other one is saying, get into the fucking streets and start throwing things around, start fucking shooting people, start fucking, if you're on a subway with a woman, just fucking throw a brick at her. You know, that sort of thing.
One of these is a conversation, the other one's a reflection, right?
Yeah. I have no sympathy for people that are sort of like the Jordan Peterson crowd. And I think that's just a generality and more of a sweeping statement for me, but I've got no sympathy because I've interacted with them. Not because I was the same as them. Thankfully, I've never been in that fucking category. But because I've seen how they think and I've seen how they operate and I've seen not how they've been raised, but how they've formed their own opinions, how they have sound mind, not regardless of upbringing, have thought things through, and I've got no sympathy for it. I've got absolutely no need to engage with that, which is probably a problem in itself, but I've only got one swing around this fucking rock of a planet.
I mean, I would say that there's, in terms of like things written for men, I mean, there's more films for men than there is books for men. It's just, for some reason, because many men are overgrown boys these days, they will just gravitate to, I don't know, Thor, Love and Thunder and whatever the hell, and no one's going to tell them, watch Boyhood. That's a film for men. It's a film for men to show you this is being a father. This is being a son. This is a male to male dynamic on screen, and there's more in this. Or watch Interstellar and focus on the guy leaving his kid behind to fix the world for her. That's an important aspect of something that critics don't even talk about because they will just focus on other things because no one cares about actually directing stuff for men. I've written 5,000 word essay about Rocky as something that's a film for men in their 30s, right? A film for me as a man who's trying to juggle all these things in life and not necessarily succeeding. But people need to kind of just, the mechanism is there, like, watch this, read this, have a look, and instead of just like, oh, you're an incel, go away, right? Like, there needs to be an interaction, and I will shut up because Nicolò wants to move on.
Yeah, no, just that's the sad reality of things. You know, it's hard to build a conversation. I think just we have to reshape how we teach art and emotions in school, because I think only through proper teaching that makes reading a book and analyzing a movie very interesting and fun and compelling, we can actually get, you know, young people watching, or even older ones watching, you know, like a Boyhood, and not turning it into a meme or making fun of it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's what happened with Fight Club.
I was going to say, you're going to transition. I was going to transition it like
become a segue.
Simple segue, like all incels should be shot, like Tyler Durden shot his mouth off. There we go, back in.
There you go. We're back on the wagon. The train's rolling.
I mean, but this conversation was bound to happen, right? Like there's a lot. I was coming into here kind of prepared that there's a lot sort of beneath the epidermis of the book that you kind of have to address, otherwise you just look trite, right?
No, sure. But
it's impossible to escape because it's essentially like, as we'll talk about with the film, is a big part of the popularity is sort of the masculinity, the heart of it, and the interpretations of it, which is. I never thought it would stick around for so long. It's like 22 years on from the film's release, and it's
Well,
quite.
masculinity is okay, by the way, because just in terms of just one last thing.
toxic masculinity.
It's just I don't even know if I like the word toxic in here. It's very odd because it's so many things are baked into this statement that is just troubling. But recently, the narrative is troubling in a way that it kind of disenfranchises young boys, young men, people who are on the verge of adulthood, because it's well, it's great if you talk about women, about minorities, about other things, and then we have it in England. Like, what's the most disenfranchised group of people in the country that are just completely left behind? Young white boys. They're just left to their own devices, and then all of a sudden, like, why are these young white boys becoming criminals? Because no one gives a shit. Like, that's part of the problem. No one cares because like, just, well, kids from all backgrounds succeed better in school other than young white boys for some reason, because, well, for some reason they have this white privilege that no one ever told them about, and then when they I don't know, grow up in the slums of Glasgow or whatever, it's just like their white privileges. I'm not sure when and where it's been dispensed, but we kind of have to be able to have these conversations, and then well, books and films have to kind of instill this conversation, and then the fact Fight Club is part of this conversation is just inescapable, so we kind of have to embrace it. Anyway, the movie now.
The movie, which is a very contrite example of toxic masculinity and how dangerous it is. Yeah, movie.
This does tie with what we just talked about, because the book came out, was about the success. It didn't shake the world per se, but it was liked. People read books, they read it, and they're like, yeah, this is good. They like it, and the studios wanted a piece of the pie. And ultimately, in the end, this was turned into a movie in 1999, directed by David Fincher after the success of Seven, starring Brad Pitt, Edward Norton, and Helena Bonham Carter. And Fight Club was, surprisingly so, not a big success in terms of box office at the time, but it became an almost instant cult classic. And since then, it's been considered one of the best films of all time. It's in the IMDb top 10, maybe even, which already says a lot. And I genuinely think the movie might be one of the most dangerous films to come out in the past 25 years. More so than Joker. Because Joker came out at a time where it was like, the memes were a thing and people were hyping it up beyond belief, and the installs are going to shoot up the cinemas, which was a genuinely scary thought at the time, if you think about it. But, now we're past it 3 years later, 3 years removed. But I think the conversation, like what happens in the book, happens in the film pretty much bit for bit. There are minor differences, but outside of the ending, nothing particularly major. What changes, in my opinion, it's just the presentation. Because I think you said it earlier, Jakub. The book makes some statements very, very clear that are hard to misunderstand. Like, you have to actually just actively not want to understand the book to miss certain points that are criticizing the behavior of Tyler Durden, the scariness about the situation evolves with Project Mayhem, and all of that. With the film, you get David Fincher at the top of his game, directing the shit out of this, which is beautiful and also alluring. How do you guys feel about the movie Fight Club? Ewan, why don't you go first this time?
Yeah, it's all right. A lot like the book. I think it's quite fun. I think it's a real thrill. It's entertaining.
Oh.
Not much more than that. I really like Edward Norton's performance more than anything. I think the first third of the film was probably my favourite bit, when he's really trying to contemplate the whole exercise of life, which is wake up, go to work, go home, wake up, go to work, go home. I find stuff like that really interesting to see it sort of unfold, and I like seeing people's takes on it, especially with Fincher, who's essentially, he's a big director, isn't he? He did Alien 3 and then something else afterwards or something.
Nice.
his most famous movie, Alien 3.
Hey, you got to work with Sigourney Weaver. That's
Talked
a
in
fucking
full
dream.
on the Uncut Gems podcast last year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Did he talk about the best Alien film, Alien Resurrection?
Not yet, no.
Oh well, I'll be there or be square. No, I think as a film, it misses a lot of the points that Chuck was trying to make, but in its place makes its own sort of system of ideas, which few positive, many negative, but very interesting, and it's very as a film that is pure entertainment, very good. I think my problem with the film is the same as the book, where I don't find much meaning in its message. I think it's been that misconstrued by people essentially leeching off of it that it's just kind of lost its way. Not its way as in sort of it doesn't have the same impact, but as in the stigma around mentioning that you've watched Fight Club is there, in the same sense that if your favorite film is The Dark Knight, you know, that sort of thing. It's like we spoke about that when we did No Country for Old Men. It's one of those films where it's like that level of popularity of like, oh, this is an entry level film, don't you know? It's like, not when it released, it wasn't, you dick. But
Yeah.
nah, very very fun film, very very interesting. It's I can't like be like, oh my god, what an amazing film. I can't like get up and excited about it because it's all right. It's pretty good. I watched it last night and it was a nice nightcap. Essentially, it was like pretty good.
It's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and they fly by.
They do indeed.
Yeah, Jakub, your thoughts on this beautiful film?
Oh boy, do they fly by! By the way, I have to say, I'm the only one in this room who's old enough to have seen this in the cinema. Am I right?
Yes.
So I was born 2 months after it released.
So
I
yeah,
was 2 years old.
so I was 15. I was in the prime age to be influenced by this film, and I watched it at 15, right? And then okay, because you guys, when you came to watch this, you came to watch this film as already this is a being in culture and it has a reputation attached to it, and then it's like, hey, what is
You know
all?
the twist, even.
It's
That's
the film.
like
It's
all of
yeah,
that.
the twist. But there's when I was watching this, I think the idea was like you don't talk about this film to people because you don't want to ruin the ending for people, right? Because that was one, and that was during the same winter when The Sixth Sense came around.
Oh, right.
So there were two films in the same sort of November, December sort of period where you just tell people, go and watch this. Like I'm not saying anything else. Just watch this. I don't want to ruin this for you. So, I think the film. Okay. Just general thoughts first. I saw this as a 15-year-old. I wasn't like because you guys are young squids, so you don't know. And this was something. I mean, fair enough. I didn't shoot anyone on the street, and in fairness, I don't think anyone did any sort of horrible violence as a result of the Joker either. So it's all just it's all fear mongering. It's just oh no, let's put security outside cinemas because men are gonna go nuts. No, they won't. It's just it was a cool film of like one of the cool films of the 90s. Like the way Pulp Fiction was cool or Reservoir Dogs was cool. It was also cool, and then it grew to become this sort of the film bro film because it was so cool that everyone had a poster. I had a poster of this film on my wall when I was 15. I had quotes from this film memorized. Like we're all singing and all dancing crap of this world. Like this kind of resonated with the rebellious teen so much that it became this sort of cliche because it resonated with everyone, and resonates with everyone. Then becomes it's like the film bro film because everyone thinks it's the best film ever because it was for like all this. Everyone who was 16 thought it was the best thing ever because it's exactly what the 16-year-old boy wants. It's about this sort of rebellion, about sticking it up to the man. That's what you want as a 16-year-old. And this film gives it to you in this sort of safe format of this being just a movie. And I the only thing that kind of happened out of this as a result was like some people for a brief moment in time started their own fight clubs, and then they decided, I think there's just like it's not worth our time anymore, guys. I think we've beat the crap out of each other for 2 months now. I think it's time to stop. Like no one actually started like organizing terrorist attacks out of this, I don't think. So it's all again a bit of fear mongering. It's fine. So it was. For me, as a 15-year-old, it was cool. I was like into Manson and Nirvana. It was great. but like you grow up and then you realize, for me, this movie's still good. I mean, I like it. I know it by heart, so it's kind of like, it's a solid 4 stars. I'll put it on. 2 hours and 20 minutes goes like this. It's great, I'll just self-improvement, masturbation, it's fine. It's just cool to watch, even though it's at this point it's almost filled with these sort of angsty energy that's just very late 90s, and also happens to be at a time where I think David Fincher had his brief obsession with these orbiting CGI shots. This just very
Yes.
dated, but it's dated in a very sort of cute way for me, because just like, oh, I remember this, and Panic Room has these sort of sequences as well, and it's just cute, right? So I
Just taking it to an extreme.
look at these sort of like Brad Pitt with spiky hair, with his red sunglasses, and he looks like he's trying to, I don't know, he's like a little bit of like Johnny Depp in Fear and Loathing a little bit, right? But it's all very, I mean, it's a cliche, but it's a cliche that I just have a bit of a fondness for, because it kind of reminds me how much of a knob I was when I was 15. Because when you look at yourself 20 years ago and you don't think you're an embarrassment, then you haven't lived, right? So that's just what it is. I like this film. I don't think it has any sort of lethal energy. It's just a film. Like, what you do with it is your own completeness. Like, like you can watch Clockwork Orange and just go, and then if you think walking out of a film, of any film, it's just like, I should probably go and start a rampage, I think you have more deep-seated problems than this film kind of could possibly give you. So so it's not the film that's the problem, it's kind of you need help. So
Telltale sign, you could say.
yeah, so it's not like, it's not the radio that's talking to you, like you need lithium, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just me. I like this film. I find this. I've always liked it. I loved it when I was younger. I was just like, I had, like, it is a meme. It's become a meme for a reason. Like if you ask someone on the street, like, what's the first rule of Fight Club, and they'll just recite the first two already, right? Everyone knows these sort of little quotes, these little scenes. I look around and I look around, see all those new faces. That means some of you haven't been really just keeping to these first two rules, right? Like this. It's fun. I don't know. It's harmless. I can put it on any day and it's fine. 2.5 hours well spent. Thanks.
Yeah. It's probably the most enjoyable David Fincher movie that he's ever made. Like the most like pure fun, adrenalinic filmmaking.
7?
Just
No?
7 is lower. I think 7 is my favorite. But I don't remember if I might have said this in the Alien Free podcast last year. But I don't love David Fincher, though I do like his movies. And when I say I don't love him, it's that
I'm
I
gonna
never
faint.
feel. Huh?
I'm gonna faint.
I just never feel the need to go back to his films. Like, if it
Yeah.
weren't for like podcasts and whatnot, I haven't rewatched any of his movies.
They're all 2.5 hours long. That's why.
They're all long. They're all movies that ultimately stick in your head. Like I never went like in the past. And I also watched this movie back in 2018. I want to say, if not 17 or 2018, for the first time. I was like, yeah, I remember this film. I really enjoyed it. I loved it. I even say back then, but I never felt the need to go back to it. And so revisiting it, I had an absolute blast watching it. It's so fun, like so fun. And that kind of reminded me why this movie is a little bit dangerous. Of course, not because people are going to go out and commit terrorist acts, but just in how they approach life. I've known men and young men who really love this movie with a passion, not to the point of having the posters up, but kind of like, they think it's cool. They want to be Tyler Durden. And we talked about it in the first episode of this podcast with another Brad Pitt character in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like, some people want to be Cliff Booth. It's like, maybe you shouldn't want to be him. Maybe it's not such a good thing. You should reconsider that. And I think it's not too dissimilar from another movie from the early 2000s, which is Requiem for a Dream.
No one wanted to be Jared Leto. Come on.
Everyone wants to be. It's like you see him crying without an arm at the end. It's like, awesome. I want that to be me.
It's just like, what I need in my life? Hard drugs. That's what I need.
But like there were some statements, and I've known people like that actually. I'm not gonna name names, but someone who kind of became a junkie because it was just so cool. And one of the things that pushed them to become a junkie was Requiem for a Dream, which you might say this is insane, but it's like, but you see it, like the text might be as obvious as you want, but just the style of a movie can lead very, I don't want to say a synonym for weak, because I don't want to say weak people, but just people who have problems, who have deep rooted issues. Um, they can fall off the edge and ultimately end up doing things that they're not big fans of, and just ruin their own lives. And so I was rewatching this and I was like, yeah, there's definitely an allure and an appeal to this film that it's not present in the book. And it also comes in the way that the violence is framed for me. Because the violence in the film is, of course, it's bloody, it's nasty, but they kind of shrug it off. Yeah, they're gonna have a little bit, like there's some blood on the floor, and they might have how do you call, like, bruises on their faces. But in the book, it's like very
The
graphic,
guy has a
very.
hole in his cheek for half of the book.
Then yes, and for some reason, like I was reading the book, and it starts like the narrator literally has a hole in his cheek, and it starts like poking at it and putting the fingers through it. And I was like, oh yeah, that's in the movie as well. For some reason, I thought it was in the movie. I don't know which movie I mistook this for, because I'm sure there's a movie with this thing of like a hole in your cheek.
Oh, there is one. I can't remember now. But then again,
Yeah, right.
it has a hole, like, because the movie reinvents the ending, right? So he ends up
Yes,
having a hole in his face again. But it's just, yeah.
it still manages to talk very clearly, but it's fine. It's a fantasy. Um,
Well, it kind of is.
it really is, truly, truly is a fantasy. But yeah, I enjoyed my time with the film, and that's the fascinating part. It's like this is one of the most faithful, we could say, adaptations as we've discussed, in terms of like changes that have been made. The very minimal, like nothing changes the core of the book in any way. I think so, right?
No, I don't think it. I mean, I would say the main difference, if I may,
Yeah, sure.
just in case Ewan wants to jump in, because I have a tendency to ramble. I'm so sorry. The main difference for me is, like, the book does not make much of a fuss out of the sort of twist aspect of the story. I think. I think it's one of those things that you just, like, at some point, I think 3/4 through the book, you realize, right, there's this other person in my body who's slowly taking over, like this sort of disease is taking over, and that's sort of, it's like, if I one day I will wake up and I won't wake up as myself anymore, right? That's his fear, narrator's fear, that he needs to kind of fight Tyler Durden because he eventually just slowly takes over more of time of the day, and he will eventually just disappear. In here, I think in the film they make more of an effort to play towards the twist.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, I think, this whole conversation about, like, oh, masculinity this, Fight Club's this, it's all secondary, because there are, like, if I've watched this film so many times, and you pick out these hints where, like, Edward Norton goes, like, I don't know, Marla Singer comes out of the bedroom where they had absolute monkey sex, because they just the noises they make, right? And it's just like, oh,
For
she's
hours on
just
end.
chirpy because she's just had like 17 orgasms, right? And then she just goes like, oh, do you think we should do this and that? And she goes like, what are you doing in my house? And then she clearly speaks to the same person she had sex with, and then she just makes a face like, what? And then they play off these things. Or when Tyler Durden and narrator are talking in a car, there are these people exchanging looks like, the fuck's happening, right? And what is, because they're always interacting with one person, it's just they never know which person are they getting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because so I think the film is making a more of a conscious effort to play into the twist, and then to make sure that the film is more about the split personality aspect of the story, rather than the sort of the neglected young man who's misdirected and has this frustrations kind of boil over and then spill into this sort of destructive behavior, right? So it's more about the twist as opposed to everything else that the book is about. As a result,
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. I want to say that the writer of the book actually didn't intend there to be a twist, and he kind of like fell into it like halfway through writing it, or like 2/3 into it. It was like, oh yeah, actually are probably just the same person. Like, he did treat Tyler Durden as a separate entity for most of the writing, right?
I don't know. I don't think I have a quote from Palahniuk on this. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case.
Might
You
be
know what I
some
mean?
wrong trivia found on the internet.
I'm not
But
sure. I'm not sure.
it does play into what you're saying, though. And I agree. And that's also like, it's like, we had this conversation as well with The Age of Innocence. It becomes so hard adapting a book, like the themes and all of that, into a cohesive movie, that you kind of have to gravitate towards something concrete. And I think the two main things that the Fincher does with this adaptation, with the direction, is focusing more on the twist itself, but also on the relationship with Marla Singer, who is a secondary character in the book. Like, she's important, but up to a point. She's not as memorable as Helena Bonham Carter in the film, to the point that, like, the final shots of the movie, which are can we say iconic in this case? Are we allowed, Jakub?
Well, I
I'd say,
think
like, the use of pixies. Where is my mind?
as someone who's seen this in 1999 and then saw this image plastered all over like magazines, yes, I think that this image and the idea of having Pixies come out of nowhere again, because they were kind of already at this point, I think, a bit of a forgotten band. I think, yeah, it kind of makes an interesting.
What a choice!
Especially that it's so on the nose, it just hurts, right?
Where is my mind? It's like, yeah. Oh.
Pixies are great.
Well, yeah, but then
Sorry,
in
I thought I'd throw that in.
1999 they were already passé, because it was like 5 years after Kurt Cobain blew his brains out. Like, people were kind of moving on.
Yeah. They got back together like a couple of years afterwards as well to do a song for the Shrek 2 soundtrack.
Yeah, so I don't think they were a band at the time. I think they were either on a hiatus, or they were just, or maybe at this point the people kind of thought they just disbanded. They didn't know that they would ever come back together.
I just interviewed the guitarist and I have no idea.
It's all connected.
It's all linked. But it's
to finish my statement very quickly. It does end up being more of a romance, I'd say, the film compared to the book. And they even, like, yeah, how do you guys feel about that? Like, the romantic angle, because I haven't talked about Marla Singer. She's the last, like, key of the puzzle, I think, with the book and the film. Ewan.
I think, I mean, it's difficult because I never really considered it as sort of a romantic angle. Not as in the relationship between the two, but as in, especially with the book, you're more focused on, like, the explosive nature of, Tyler Durden and all the narration. It feels a bit more established in the film, and I don't know if that's because Fincher genuinely wants to follow it, or because it's Helena Bonham Carter and you can sell the name at the box office. I don't know, but it's well managed. I think Helena Bonham Carter is a fucking phenomenal actor. Superb when she's not working with Tim Burton.
Oh, come on!
I do not like Tim Burton.
Digs on this episode. Oh my god.
Oh man.
Oh Jesus.
Tim Burton, fuck off. Yeah, it's pretty good. It never feels like it's fully the focus, but when it does flash up, it has its moments. It's kind of like the best parts of Fight Club, like that sort of angle with Helena Bonham Carter in a supporting role, are the bits that kind of impact the story but aren't really sticking around too much, like Meatloaf, who's stunning.
Oh, he has stunning tits.
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
Rich tits.
That's all right. It needed to be mentioned. Yeah, I think it's all right. I don't know. I really haven't got much to say on it. I think it's serviceable. I think it's interesting to the point where it helps the narrative flow. But I never stopped and thought, oh, wow, Fincher's done something really unique there. He's done something really, really impressive. I just thought it plodded along, gently goes.
Yeah. How you Jakub? Any thoughts on
I mean,
Marla?
Marla in the book is kind of, I'm not sure what she is. I think she's a passenger in the story almost. I think in the film, I think she's more of a she has more agency. I would say that in the film, Marla Singer is, as you said, I think it's just a catalyst for this whole thing becoming a love story with a twist, as in like, well, she's this woman who has to deal with a guy who's clearly deranged, and she knows he's deranged. He doesn't know that he's deranged, right? So that's the sort of main sort of drive of this, because she's the only one who knows just what the hell's going on. Like, I'm like, you love me, you hate me, you sleep with me, and you don't want to see me. Like, just, you know,
Make up your mind.
and especially that she actually drops these hints, like, oh, you remember when you were playing doctor? Like, it's all before like this big revelation. It's just of, no, Tyler was. It's just, oh, they're the same person. Yeah. But it's actually adding to a potential message, that positive message that could come out of Fight Club, as some like, this is something that you could do if you look at this film and think, oh, I have a useless sort of existence like this guy. Should I actually go and fight people? No, maybe you should just do something. I don't know, do something with yourself, and then you'll find a woman who will like you, and then potentially temper you somehow and civilize you to become a protector and become a warrior in a cause of that, like, I don't know, as opposed to a frustrated, aggressive individual. Because men need this outlet as well, and then men need women to kind of just I don't know, to complete their development as well.
That's
But that's just what it is.
But that makes it sound like they're just fucking objects to complete an image.
No,
that's
that's
fucking
not.
grim.
No,
Yeah, they just need a
no,
checklist.
see,
Really,
this is what you're doing. Exactly what everyone who watches these films and reads these books kind of do. Is just like, you kind of just latched onto this. Like, no, men need women the same way like women need men. That doesn't mean they're objects to them.
Of course, with men, we mean cisgender heterosexual
Well,
men.
I don't have the faculties to talk on behalf of any other minority. I can only speak for myself. So that's just what I am. So, like, and it's just what happens. Is just that's just the majority of people who would respond to this film would probably be that as well.
That's fair. What I find interesting in this story, the way it's framed in the film, it almost feels like Tyler Durden was born also out of the narrator's kind of desire for Marla, to the point that he sees himself as weak, and he creates this persona that's strong, that's confident, that she's going to fall in love with, which is an interesting bit of deception, if you want, on his part, unwillingly so, which I find interesting. I'm not super. Yeah, like I understand what you're talking about, Jakub. I'm not too. I agree to a point. I'll say that.
I'll put it this way: that the film, neither the film nor the book, give anybody any answers, right?
Yes.
It's not like, here's what, like, it doesn't come with a moral at the end, and at the end the narrator did A, B, C, and D, and then he got to be a better person, and he established a great relationship with Marla, and they had 17 kids, and then everything went well, and they lived happily ever after. There's no such thing in there. Let's just, here's a recipe for what you should do. Like, no, like, you actually have to go and think. So the film does it as well. When you think, well, if you take it at face value, you could say, like, yeah, it is dangerous. Like, well, is it objectifying people? Probably is, if you don't really look into it. So it's so, as you say, like, well, is she an object? I'm not sure. Like, she's a character. She's fleshed out much better than in a book. However, the sort of yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's the sort of thing that neither the film nor the book give you any sort of tangible answer about what to do with yourself, because the character of narrator, he's probably infatuated with Marla, but he thinks like he's effectively what we call an incel, right? He's an involuntary celibate.
Well, is an insolent. Marla is also a manic pixie dream girl, basically. Like, she's quirky, she's so different. Look at her; she stands out from the crowd.
Yeah, but then he invents this persona of, like, he's this confident, sort of cocky guy who's aggressive and very sort of self-assured. But he invents this as a measure of coping, and then the mechanism in which he becomes one also comes without a recipe of, here's a productive ways of achieving similar results by being productive and positive, right? The film and the book are sort of chaotic neutrals, which when misinterpreted can slant towards evil, right?
Yeah.
Because, well, no one tells you in the book or the film how, okay, well, should I idolize Tyler Durden? I'm not sure. Or should I strive to become someone who's confident? How do I do this? What do I do? It doesn't tell you doesn't give you these steps, something like in a way that something like Rocky does, where, keep, keep pushing forward. If you fall, get up, keep pushing forward. It's not about how much damage you can dish out. It's about getting hit and not falling on your knees. It doesn't give you these lessons. So I suppose this is where the danger is, because you need to think for yourself and you need to actually do some extra thinking outside of the film, outside of the book, and not many people are probably willing to do so.
That's hard, Jakub. That's hard. Oh, but jokes aside, the last thing I wanted to ask you both is the endings, which conceptually very similar and very different. I would say that the book ending, where it's kind of like, very odd to me. It's like Marla gets together with the one of the cancer groups that she was going with with the narrator. Like she arrives at the building before it explodes, and she tries to stop the narrator from killing himself. He fails in his attempt, and he wakes up in a hospital room, and everyone that's taking care of him is part of Project Mayhem, part of Tyler Durden's club. And it's a very eerie ending. But then you have the movie ending where it's basically, shit's falling apart, but the narrator shot himself in the mouth. Tyler Durden is finally being killed off this way. He's not coming back, and he holds hands.
Dumb, right?
Yeah, it's an Hollywood ending, and it's very cinematic, which I like. It's definitely very cinematic. But how do you both feel about the endings? Because personally, I get chills watching the movie ending. It's very great, it's very effective. But I also like the more pessimistic angle of the book, where you're not sure what's gonna happen next. Like you said, Jakub, is Tyler Durden actually being killed off? What's gonna happen? Who knows? Who knows? How do you feel about that?
He's dead, surely.
I mean, I think that's one of the interpretations, that he's in heaven, right?
Yeah, so the book's
What
like,
a horrible heaven that is.
wasn't it essentially the book's like he makes his first active choice, and the first active choice he makes is to blow his fucking head out, which understandable if I were in the same predicament. I kind of prefer that one to the film, mainly because it's just a bit, a bit artsy. You know what I mean? It's kind of like,
Gets you thinking.
he's in heaven. It gets you thinking. Gets the noggin jogging. Whereas the film kind of, not a cop out. I think the film does a really interesting job of the ending, but it caters to the, you can live happy if you conquer your demons of not liking women and being violent, which is a bit of a cope. But I think, yeah, it's like you said, Nick. It's kind of like two very different endings, but at the same time, it is quite similar in the sense of the outcome is the same. He still pulls the trigger. He still tries to exercise the demon within. The outcome is different, though. It's kind of like the message is the same. The outcome is different, and the outcome really doesn't matter so much to the point of, is he dead? Is he not? At the end of it, it is still, he's taken the first choice himself. He's taken an active choice for the first time in the book, or the film as well. And I think that's a really interesting sort of similarity that they share. It's nice. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, Jakub. Give me your thoughts.
I'm just thinking now. The ending of the book is more closely related to the ending of the film Joker.
Yeah, actually.
Just
I
saying.
didn't think about that.
If you think about this, it's just without the sort of, again, twist of like, don't worry, sir. Like I think the ending of both film and the book, I mean, are similar in that way, that it's all about just like, okay, well, it's out of control now. So this is the dangerous part of the book, because it doesn't really give you, like, it assumes you know how to think, right? So you're supposed to say, well,
It's a very dangerous thing to assume.
This is it's nuanced, because in both instances it's easy to kind of fall prey to the allure of the image and say, like, look at all these buildings falling apart, the music, and they hold hands, and you think to yourself, what a great way, because like we've destroyed the world and everything's gonna be all right. And it's not necessarily this. They're just like, holy shit, I just ruined the world, but at least, you know what, at least we can do this together. Like, he's just there's a very nuanced, sort of very complex sort of bouquet of emotions baked into this image, and I'm not necessarily sure that anyone even stopped to think about it. In the book, similarly, there's a nuanced, complex sort of set of emotions that people gloss over because it's the ending, and they're like, oh, fine, we're done in here, so where do I go to start a fight club, right? And then, but to me, they're interesting in that they invite a conversation about, okay, I mean, to me, that this is what they talk to me about as a man, because I can only say this from my perspective, and then I don't feel qualified to speak on behalf of other people. I can say this how this resonates with me as a male who's grown up and was conditioned in the way that he was. And then, this is a film about, or in a book about, this sort of concept of not being able to direct your frustration, and then what can come out of it, and then eventually it may spiral out of control. And this is, and the lesson is, you should do something about it if you have feelings like these, and you probably may have them because, well, there's just energy that you have to put in someplace. Then if you don't, things will the wheels may come off, and then when they come off, the lesson is, you may not be able to reverse it, you may not be able to put a stop to this. The genie will be out of the bottle, and
it's too late.
It's in both in the film and in the book. It's just very new, very, very subtly sort of glossed over, and then you can easily just tack on, like, you latch onto the image, or latch onto the sort of idea of this sort of the mental hospital twist, and just leave it at that. But I feel there's something bigger in there that should speak to you if you're willing to stop and think. Yeah.
Beautifully put. Beautifully put. And I think at this point there is just one last question. Ultimately, at the end of the day, after this conversation, Ewan,
Hello.
which version of Fight Club do you prefer? The book or the film?
The book, because incels can't read. I'll do.
What do you mean?
You're safe from them there.
How many books did Jordan Peterson sell? Come on, they know how to read. They just don't want to read Wuthering Heights.
Yeah, that's the issue.
What a shame.
No, I think the film's probably just a smidge better, because you get to watch Edward Norton, and Edward Norton's quite a good actor, and Helena Bonham Carter's always fucking phenomenal, and Meatloaf as well. I think I'm basing this more on, I don't know, because it's kind of like they are pretty much the same piece. I can see no difference. It all comes down to whether or not I want to work the brain or slump on my couch eating Pringles and getting Pringle hand and getting my hand stuck in the tube. I find myself very indifferent to the message in Fight Club. I'm not fully convinced that it's sort of like a positive step for man, in the sense of the messages it approaches.
It doesn't give you the message. That's the problem of the film and the book, right?
Well, in a way, yeah, but what it's representing and what it intones isn't exactly the best. You know, I mean, I know, like, from my perspective, because I've been raised soundly and mentally safe, is that sort of, you shouldn't kick the shit out of people, and you should probably treat people with a bit of respect, to say the least.
I'd be interested to have this conversation again, say 10 years from now.
How do you think? How do you mean?
No, when you hit like 32, 33, like people change, and then I would like to see whether.
Do you think I'll join a fight club and start hating women?
I would like to see, because then you will have, say, like, worked for a bit longer. You'll have different pressures. It would be interesting to see whether you change your perspective on certain, on like the book or the film, and then in the way in which it's changed. It would be fascinating to me to see.
Yeah. How do you think it would change?
I don't know. It just I feel like okay, well,
because you watched it when it came out, so you kind of probably is the best example of this. Have you changed at all?
well, I wasn't, like I didn't exit the cinema thinking like, you know what, I need to go and find someone to punch, right? Or so for me, this was just a cool film from the 90s. Like it was just so cool to look at. It was so slick, so nice. But I don't feel like I was just like, oh yeah, like this is what started my teenage rebellion. Like no, like my teenage rebellion has been like well underway. But now I watch these things and I actually feel like, oh, it's almost like a cautionary tale. It's just like this shit could potentially happen to people if like me who don't know how to direct their energy, like who don't have, or who were unfortunate enough that they wouldn't find some kind of a role model in life or something to latch onto, and then they're just existing these sort of what's the lives of desperation, like quiet lives of desperation where you just grit your teeth, clench your fists, and just get on with your life. So that may happen to everyone, right? So even in a successful career, this sort of burnout may creep into your existence. So that these are all experiences that will shape you, and that will be interesting to see whether any sort of pressures that may come to your life in the next 10 years or so may actually make you think about these films, like, and the books about like, well, there's a point to this, or I don't feel as aggressive towards them anymore, or something like this, or like, or for some reason I feel like Rocky just is the best film ever. So just I don't know.
I feel like
Dropping it in casually.
it's like what we were on about earlier. It's kind of like that energy, as you said. It's kind of like I've put that towards my writing. I don't think that'll ever change, but I think I've not really much sympathy for people that have energy and haven't figured out where to put it. I think that's just might be quite smug from my part because I've figured out what I want to do.
So my speculation will be that in 10 years from now, you may actually think like, oh, I may now have sympathy because people have different experiences, and you may calm down a little.
The people I've experienced though, and believe me, there are many, have just been purely negative. The people that sort of think, oh, wouldn't fighting be cool, are the same people that fucking harassing women in the street saying, give me your phone number. And it's like, do they
actually get the phone numbers?
No, because nobody wants to speak to fucking assholes like that. But I can't separate the two because it's essentially like the sort of Fight Club, American Psycho, Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate mentality is very prevalent and very concerning, very worrying. And I don't think those people should be catered to whatsoever. I think they should just be fucking fending for themselves, feral. If they're not going to sort themselves out, boom, I have no sympathy for people like that, and I don't think people that kind of inject themselves in a Fight Club with the Tyler Durden mentality are deserving of. It's like you said. It's like every 5 or 10 years we should get a book for men.
I mean, these days we probably won't even. I think I have to modify this statement because I think I didn't factor in that there are films that could also function in this way because people don't read. It's just that's a general travesty anyway. So I think we have to kind of factor in that there will be films in this equation as well, and I think that if we come to think of it, there'll probably be like one every decade. It's just there's probably more. It's just they're usually like looked over and say like because no one recommends Boyhood as a film for men, and they should.
Oh no, absolutely, yeah. I think it's like there is a sort of you're not gonna. I don't know if it's a stigma about the film. I think it's more of a what art is immediately available to someone. Fight Club is far more popular than Sorry We Missed You. There is a less of a stigma around fucking The Dark Knight than Boyhood, and it's a reflection of not just what Hollywood can sell, but what it can appeal to the regular moviegoer with. Violence is always going to sell more than a touching portrayal of 12 years in the life of a boy. Beating each other up as an outlet, and let's be fair, there is no way of beating around the bush. Fincher and Fight Club and the book itself do present it as a positive thing. As a get together for white collar workers to beat the shit out of each other and reduce stress, which is not healthy in the slightest, which is not something that should be sort of not shown, but as in this light, it's shown as if it's something that can be like, it'll be all right until you start forming a terrorist cell, which is what Joker kind of did, where it was like rallied the troops, essentially rallied the unwanted masses. And I think the issue is that the unwanted masses don't realise that they're unwanted because of their own decisions, their own choices, and there is only so much blame you can put on a lack of a role model or a lack of art that appeals to them.
It's not
There
a
is only a
blame.
certain,
It's
not
about
blame,
blame.
but
It's just,
certainly,
well, how do you help these people? Do you leave them behind? Like, this is,
yes.
well, that's,
Are they deserving of help if they're at that point?
see, this is
I
why I
don't know.
fundamentally disagree. Like, are you willing to? What do you want to do with them? Like, would you then facilitate them having her like brains blown out? Just, just
Stick them
commission
in tubes.
by commission. Just like, what do you do with them? Like, you have to kind of do something with them. Like, do you
I've got
put them away? Do you kill them?
no sympathy whatsoever for people that sort of like think, oh, I could be Patrick Bateman. As soon as they think that they're gone, they're dead to me.
So you
Like,
don't
there's no
feel,
point
you
in-
don't think they deserve help?
No.
That's very sad, actually.
Everyone deserves redemption. That's kind of
See?
yeah. You can see that as a message at the end of the film as well. The narrator is never past redeeming himself, never past going back on what he's been doing, understanding that he's been wrong, and ultimately also getting the love of his life, maybe. Holding hands. Jakub, what do you prefer, the book or the
Briefly,
film?
I think the book, because I've seen the film so many times and I know it by heart. But I
It's
had so
lost
much.
power.
I had so much. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's I mean, it's
It
good. I
happens.
enjoy it, but I would never put it on like a top 100 list. But the book is just it's just interesting. It's very well written, and I really like how Palahniuk writes. So I think the book.
It's hard for me because I didn't love the book, and I did enjoy the film much more, but I also agree that the book gave me way more to think about than the actual movie did, despite being pretty much the same thing. The movie is an excellent Cliff Notes version of the book. You still get everything out of it pretty much. You get a lot of the thought provoking themes. You get to have interesting discussions about what it's trying to say about men in our times. But I kind of have to agree with both of you. Like, especially after this conversation, I'm kind of turning around the book. You know, I'm feeling like, yeah, I think the book is better. I think the book is better, and I actually want to read more about from Palahniuk and also more of his books in the future. You've managed to tickle my interest again, Jakub. I was
Managed to
losing
tickle
hope.
Nicolò again.
It's just tickling, just a little bit like on the feet. And I'm like, yeah, it's working. It's working.
Ewan remains untickled.
I refuse to be tickled.
It's no Irvin Welsh. Probably difference of.
Hey, I think
cultures.
Irvin Welsh is a great example of understanding that masculinity because he gets his just desserts at the end, especially filth. That is a man repugnant. He is what Jordan Peterson is essentially writing, and Andrew Tate is telling men to be. And at the end of it, he hangs himself. So
see, that's the difference, right?
He's
Irvin Welsh
punished.
gives you the message at the end.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't leave this sort of up in the air unresolved. He doesn't leave any sort of say, well,
And
just in case on the off chance you'd like to idolize this asshole.
this is what happens. Yes, exactly. Do you think that the lack of brain power, lack of brain power, I'll phrase it in a way that doesn't make me sound condescending. The open-ended nature of stuff like Fight Club, stuff like American Psycho, do you not think that appeals to sort of a fantasy point of view, a perspective that doesn't not mention the bad behavior, but it does not punish the bad behavior? Therefore, people, especially men, think it's acceptable behavior because there are examples of that.
To a point, but then again, you'd have to extend the same sort of courtesy towards something like A Clockwork Orange or something like this, because at the end of the day, it's not my job as a writer, if I was a writer writing these things, to make sure that people don't misunderstand me. All I'm doing is telling a story, right? And I think this is how Palahniuk feels, how Irvine Welsh feels, or how Anthony Burgess felt, right? All they do is tell a story, and then they're trying to convey whatever emotions that's there in their heads, or they're trying to kind of just direct the thoughts that kind of just they've gathered from observing the world for a while. That's all this is. So to me, to a point, I would say, yeah, maybe there's some responsibility on their behalf, but really, you know, we should be able to, like, I don't really want to be, I don't know, to either have everything kind of spelled out for me. Sometimes it helps, but I want to live in a world where I can, I don't have to suffer through a trigger warning at the beginning. Say, don't take this seriously, or like, don't do this at home. These stunts are performed by absolute professionals, right? Like, this is, although, like, I suppose, like, the Jackass guys had to kind of do this because people would actually just probably the same people who read Fight Club, they will probably go and then reenact Fight Clubs. They will still kind of get on their skateboards and just run downstairs, right?
I wouldn't be surprised.
But yeah, I don't know.
I think it's kind of like, sorry, no, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go for it.
I was just going to say, it's kind of like, I don't know how much responsibility there is on a writer or an artist to tell people what to think of their work. However, I think there is a certain demographic that will seek out films like Fight Club to reassure themselves, and that's when it becomes an issue, and that's when it's problematic, because those are the people that do need the closed guidance, the closed guidance of Irvine Welsh saying, if you do this, you are going to die, ruin your life, etc., etc., and rightly so, because if you follow that thought pattern, you are not going to be an asset to society. And obviously the issue with it, I mean, for people like us, it's all right, because we're not, me and Nick, we're not going to join fight clubs in Venice, are we?
I mean,
I've searched karaoke bars, not fight clubs. It all depends on how you view it. I think if people are viewing fight clubs as sort of let's do that, fucking God help them.
I mean, that's just, I don't know. It's to me, as a I don't think it's not a I don't know, requirement for any storyteller to think like, oh, how can possibly my stuff be misconstrued? No, it's on you. You read, and you take whatever you like. If you've been conditioned to do X, Y, and Z, and then you think this book enables you, that's great. That's bad. But it's not my fault as a writer, right?
So
like, all I'm doing is telling a story. All I'm doing is trying to work whatever shit I'm going through, and if and it's it just look.
But if there's more literature for men, does that not mean there's a responsibility for them to take if people are going to read it that way? They're essentially enabling a problem.
On a societal level, it's not a responsibility of a writer or a storyteller to do this. It's a responsibility of a teacher to show you this book and tell you and guide you through it if you need guidance, right?
But people don't have that guidance. I don't have guidance, and I know Fight Club's wrong.
No, just in general. Like, if you want to teach a young person something about the world, like, you kind of have to make an effort and teach them, right?
Yeah. But we're not talking about young people. We're talking about people the same age as me and Nick, like 20, 25-year-olds.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean by young people.
My back's not gone.
35 and under.
No, it's just in general. But this starts at like 15 and up, right? So like, you're still kind of...
But 15 and up is people that have had education, people who have had the chance to engage with... Well, sorry,
15 you've had jack shit on education, but you're barely out of primary school, right?
But you are... No, sorry, 15 out of primary... What? 15, you are in
like,
you've been in education.
That's why I'm saying, like, 10 years from now, you'll have a different perspective. Like, for you, 15 is kind of like, this is just like,
15 is old enough to form a role
15 to 25 just blurs into one age.
Oh God, don't say that. 15 is old enough to have a role model, though, and to perceive, or to at least start understanding the world. I mean, there were big calls in this country to, well, I'd say calls, but a lot of people on were saying that the voting age should be lowered to 16.
Jesus.
Which is sort of...
No, please, God, no.
The other way, it's probably a better idea. Like,
you think only old people should vote? 65 and up.
You know what? I wouldn't be opposed to, like, women having their voting age decreased because women mature quicker. Like, 18.
Well, I don't...
Yeah, like, just biologically, just girls are at 18 are totally different than boys are 18 at 18. Like, boys need to, like, I don't know, like 22, 24 maybe, they'll be like, yeah, I think I'm getting ready to become an adult, right? It's just That's just biology. Like your frontal cortex is still not developed at like 23.
I will add about all of this that, like we discussed the 50 Shades trilogy, which we also kind of talked about whether it's equally as dangerous as something like a Fight Club or a Clockwork Orange.
How many sex prisons have been erected since then?
How many terrible relationships that linger on abuse and gaslighting and all of that have endured since. And I agree with you, Jakub, actually on all of this. Like, I do genuinely think that like it's, and I think about this also as someone who wants to make more art and who has written ideas for stories that are not going to be taken very nicely by the majority of people, are not going to be understood for what they want to be. And I think it's very easy to fall into the pitfalls of someone like, I don't know if you guys have seen Vox Lux, the Ray Corbett movie.
Yeah. We need to do this on Gems, by the way, one day.
I haven't seen it since it came out. I loved it, watched it before the premiere of the press screening, and people hated it. And Brady Corbett, like, he was very sad, he was very upset, and he wanted people to know what he meant. He was like, no, this is not what I meant. And he had interviews, and he explained things before and after other premieres after that. And I look at that, and it kills me. Like, it makes me so sad and upset, and I totally feel for him. But I also think he did the wrong thing. Not everyone can be as strong as a David Lynch and be like, I'm not going to say shit about this. Like, you love it, you hate it, I don't care. Not everyone is as strong as that. But I think we're falling closer and closer to the point that you do, like, we are going to get what you were talking about, Jakub, like the content warnings and the, like, this is not to be taken literally. Don't take this as an invitation to actually do certain things, which is grim, absolutely grim. Art should pose it questions, it shouldn't give answers. The answers you're going to find in your own time, in your own self, with your own luggage of experience.
As you culture yourself as well.
As you culture yourself, and as you try to have an open mind. Because I think, and also something that's so oddly interesting, that all the comparisons of like books and movies that have a strong message ending that you mentioned previously are British. And Fight Club is distinctly American, which I found interesting. I don't know if there's a point to any of that, that comparison, but it's fascinating. Even Clockwork Orange, if you think about it, like the original novel had the extra epilogue that was very happy and that the message, and it was like, hey, we became a good person and got married, after everything horrible. And then Kubrick just removed it wholesale and just leaves you with the horribly disturbing open ending of the film.
And then he banned the film in Britain, right?
There you go.
Did he not get thrown out of England for that? Or not thrown out, but he essentially left because he was getting harassed that much for the film?
No.
It was something daft like that. Am I thinking of the right thing?
I don't think so. He moved to England because he was...
He moved to England, that's the one, yes. Yeah.
Because he didn't like living in America for some reason. But I think he banned the film in England. He said as long as he's alive, he didn't want the film to be shown. And then the film was re-released after he died.
Yeah, in the late 90s.
In England. In late 90s, because he died in 1999. I don't think
he didn't get to see Fight Club.
It was like April or May, something like that.
He didn't finish Eyes Wide Shut. I think it was released posthumously, but just
by like a couple months.
But even with that, because I think there were some like riots that the press kind of just declined the journalism of the great United Kingdom. Just always latches onto this. So like, how can we blame anybody else but ourselves, our societies, and our poor fucking family life for the horrible crimes that are committed on our doorsteps? Like, there's always films and video games. Like, I don't know, James Bulger was killed by 2 young boys, and all of a sudden, like, Mikey wasn't released, and Child's Play 2 was blamed for this, right? Like there are two people. Some people kind of just committed a bunch of acts of violence, and someone said like they probably saw Clockwork Orange. They probably did because it was a popular film, and then all of a sudden like this gets banned, right? So I think we, but at the same time, I think when it comes to like nowadays with like Fight Club and I don't know Joker, we're overselling
Natural born killers.
but we're overselling the importance of this, I think, as well, because like it's all driven not by the fact that it actually happens, but by the fact that the media spins this to become sensations, because what it gives them is clicks, it gives them engagement, and gives them money.
And the studio itself fuels it, if you think about it. It's
Yeah,
not like
because it
Todd
gives
Phillips
them
went out and said, "This is not a dangerous movie." It was like
it puts
constantly.
it puts butts in seats. Come on.
Exactly.
I don't doubt studios and the media are trying to spin it, but I do think to a degree that the people that want to see it because they are going to see it and get a reaction out of it are still going to see it. It's kind of like, eventually it'll happen upon it.
No, but what I'm saying is just the idea of like this film's dangerous. Like, cause do you remember when Joker was being released? There were patrols in New York City. There were just armed guards outside cinemas, as though people would do something. Just no, nothing's
Was that not
gonna
in
happen.
response to the
Nothing ever happens.
The Dark Knight had a shooting.
Dark Knight Rises, yeah.
Dark Knight Rises had a screen shooting, yeah.
Well, yeah, but
Fight
that
Club
wasn't a result of the Dark Knight. It was just a deranged man who just. If this was, I don't know, if Babe was playing in there, this would have been Babe. Like, this was just the guy walked
I
into
don't
a
know.
crowded
I
place and
mean,
started shooting
Walked
people.
in
It's nothing.
dressed as Babe the pig.
Well, it's like Fight Club. It's like the big story about that was I think it was 2002. There was a pipe bomb incident where he was trying to make the smiley face with explosions on a US map, and again, it's kind of like you mentioned there. The James Bulger case is a really great example of that. It's too. I've never really known, because I've never really thought about it that much, where the line between influence of a media and an actual just unhinged trait lies. I don't really know how much one influences the other. I have no idea.
Like the video nasties of the 80s. Like, there's always certain bits of media, or conservative media as well, that they're all very sort of happily jumping on and making sensations out of nothing. That's also part of this. And then equally, I think we also have to remember that Fight Club came out in late 90s, sort of at the tail end of the sort of angsty sort of second wave punk rebellion, right? Where these Gen Xers slackers were just about my age then, who just probably just resonate with this would resonate with them, because it was an estuary of what the sort of the smiley face sort of building explosions, whatever. This is something that you could possibly even envision in the 70s and 80s. This was the stuff that they were probably talking about at parties. Like, we should totally do this, right? While they're smoking crack or something like that, or drinking cheap wines, because they have nothing else to do with themselves, because again their energy has gone unfocused and then turned into frustration and turned into anger and led to dark side. But that's this sort of, so you kind of have to see the Fight Club is a reflection of that sort of angst that was just in society at the time as well, and it didn't come out of nowhere. It's not like Palahniuk just dreamt it up. Like, this is something that you just observed and wrote down.
Yeah, like, last thing I'll say about this is that we've just lost, like, not we, but like newer generations have lost critical thinking when analyzing and looking over art in general, whatever form of it. It's very shallow readings. There's no willingness to go in depth to put yourself on the spot as well, of like questioning your own morals. Me and the good Ewan here will be going to the Venice Film Festival in a couple of weeks by the time this comes out, if all goes well. And one of the films that's screening there is Blonde. And we may or may not do a special episode on that if we manage to read the book in time. But
have you seen the size of this book, Nick?
I have. I'm reading it.
Look at it. You could use this as a paperweight or beat a child with it.
It's a strong contender with. It's a strong contender with a Stephen King novel. I have it like next to The Stand. They're like fighting each other every
it's
night.
Like 200, 300 pages shorter than It, and I remember reading It for this podcast. And I read it in bed and I dropped It on my nose.
Ouch!
I've got a big nose. I understand I've got a big nose.
Could you
Look at
imagine
that.
like
It's
this sort of like this big
it's like a
black eye?
shark's
Just,
fin.
what happened, Ewan? Did you get into a fight? No, I was reading it in bed.
He
That-
thought
yeah,
it was
it's
Fight
like-
Club, but actually,
The spread of it, if you open it, it's like the size of my face, and I've got a huge face, and I
Um.
know that factually because you know Christmas cracker hats that come in the
yes.
Christmas crackers, they don't fit my head; they're
Oh,
too
no.
small. So if I drop blonde on my head, I think it's curtains for me. Dead. Game
Just
over.
a concussion from Joyce Carol Oates.
I'm gonna get to Venice. I'm gonna
Um,
have bandages
okay,
around my head.
It's a paperback, so at least that's that, you know.
Yeah, it's not a
Yeah, I know,
hardcover.
but it's like it's
Spoken,
one of
I
those
would-
like, you know, when the paperback's so big, it's kind of like got the thick spine. It's like it's got to be. It's like reinforced.
Hey,
It's all the glues melded together. It's like it's getting ready now. It's like
very
a brick.
thick.
Yeah. It's like reading Dune. I've got Dune on hardback, and that was like just clonk,
Ouch.
dead.
But yes, like I'm reading the book. I'm like a third of the way through almost, and I just don't want to engage in the. I would love to engage in critical discourse around it, but the trailer came out like yesterday or 2 days ago, and it's already insufferable the way people are talking about it on social media, and that's because we, like newer generations, have lost critical thinking. Like you cannot show or talk about anything without it being destroyed. I think all three of us loved Spencer last year, right?
Mhm. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Love
I
Spencer.
think it was my favorite of that year.
It's
Mhm.
top, like it's tied for me with Card Counter and Titan. But
What a
I've
top
had
three that is.
conversations. I have good taste, you know. Sometimes I have good taste. I remember what a good movie is. But I had conversations with people talking about how, you know, how disrespectful it is to make this fictionalized retelling of a real person and of their life, and it's exploitative and it's horrible and blah blah blah. And the same thing is happening with Blonde, completely forgetting that that's something that's been done for centuries. The only difference is that these are people closer to us, so it kind of falls into the thing of, like, you know, the South Park rule, like how long after can you make jokes about 9/11? Like when does the line move? It's like, yeah, that's kind of it. Like now, like, oh, if we make a movie about like Mank, no one gives two shits about Mank and Citizen Kane, so that's fine. Even if it's fictionalized, who cares? But if you're
Oh,
making it
That
about,
wasn't a bit of an icon, wasn't he?
I guess, yeah, it's like it's like it's discourse is toxic. We've mentioned that as well on the Roger Ebert conversation. Like film criticism and criticism of art in general is kind of dead,
Yeah.
and it makes me sad. And that's why I think, like, I'm happy that we're not getting a serious Joker sequel. It's probably going to be a musical with Lady Gaga as well.
That's perfect. That's exactly what we
See,
need.
Like that makes me happy.
I don't want to dwell on the self-criticism side of things, but I kind of just feel like I don't want to say I blame
No, go
Roger
for it.
Ebert for it, but it's all about star ratings. It's all about thumbs up, thumbs down. It's all about getting access to screenings and getting access to perks, and at the end of the day, it's also about dog whistle politics. It's never about like you can't even have an honest conversation about contentious topics because you say the word I don't know I don't know. You say there are certain words that just evoke certain. You have to have a certain opinions about them, otherwise people will just react very viscerally and very angry to you. So so nuanced conversations. I understand even Brady Corbett and say like you don't get it. Like it's so easy to get. Like people don't get it. No, because they latch on to certain things and they say like this shows this, therefore it means A, B, C, and D, and therefore this subscribes to this political view, and I don't agree with this view, therefore this guy is a Nazi, right? So
Pretty much, it's
which
that's not far off.
yes, which is for lack of a better way, moronic. But anyway, it's just people kind of just it's so reductive and so disrespectful to the whole concept of even discussing art as a as a pursuit, like a life pursuit for others. It's just I don't know, boggles the mind. Anyway,
It's ridiculous.
I'm kind of glad film criticism is dead. I dance on its corpse.
Yeah, I don't as long as I can write whatever I want to write, and I don't even
Yeah,
care if
exactly
anybody
that.
reads this. I don't care. I don't care. I'm not in the business of writing criticism. If I feel like I want to write 2,000 words about Halloween 3, I'm gonna do this if I have the time. Or like I'm
Yeah,
doing it now.
absolutely,
I'm
yeah.
trying to write 2,000 words about Piranha 2. So
A noble conquest. Are you doing as in Piranha, like the remake, the sequel, the one with Christopher Lloyd, or the actual classic?
The actual Piranha 2 directed.
I just want to make very
exactly
sure.
with James Cameron.
Jimmy Boy.
It's what I mentioned to you, Nick, when we did the Roger Ebert podcast. I know we're going off in a tangent, but I kind of think
go for it.
It's networking in film criticism is so huge, but it's so toxic that I just don't do it. I just don't speak to people. And I remember mentioning this on the podcast, and I think you and Carson were a bit shocked to hear that I actively go out of my way to not talk to people about films on Twitter. It's like, I don't care. I know what my thoughts are. If you want to talk to me about it, read my review and then talk to me. Because everything I'm going to say to you is in that 500-word spiel. I've got nothing more to add. That's me spent. I've moved on to the next. I've got a list here. Got all these to work through. Not the time. And it's like, I think it's, I mean, for me, it's because I write for myself. There's only been like 5 things I've written for someone else, and that's it. But I always write for myself. And to discuss that with someone else is really strange, where it's not that I don't care. I appreciate the effort that they've approached me and said, oh, what did you think of this? But the implication that I'm going to ask what they think, I don't care. There are very rare occasions. You two, Carson, Jakub, mainly the clap a lot that I actually speak to, are like, yeah, okay, what do you think? If it's a stranger on Twitter that's like, oh, I agree and I like this, but it's like, stop right there. Do you see the blue tick badge? I didn't ask. Away with you, you commoner. Nah, I think, seriously though, I think it's...
commoners.
God, you dare
We're
speak
in the presence
of me?
of royalty, Jakub.
Everybody's looking up where I'm on my perch with the old Twitter verified.
Should we call you Your Grace?
No, that's quite all right. I do have
Grace?
I'm technically a reverend. I accidentally, when I was very drunk, I applied for the Universal Life Church, and they made me a reverend. So technically, Reverend Gleadow.
Can you get people married?
Yeah, I can actually, like in the eyes of the Universal Life Church, which operates in America, so it's kind of useless over here. But if I'm ever in America, I can. I'm getting my certificate up.
Such a powerful man.
On this day, the 14th of April, 2021, Ewan Gleadow is officially recognised as a member of the Universal Life Church and has all rights and privileges to perform all duties of the ministry.
Hey.
Nice.
So, there you go, Reverend Gleadow. I can't remember if I've actually married anyone, because when I did that, I was quite drunk.
I think you'd remember. Right, this is an important thing.
A long thing as well, I'd imagine.
Anyways, the gist of my point was film criticism is dead, and I think it, like Jakub rightly said, Roger Ebert and the star ratings phenomenon killed it. And especially now especially what we've been talking about with kind of the critical response to not just film itself and books and media itself, but the ideas behind them and what they imply and what they implicate. The lack of understanding, the sort of burned down, sort of, I want this in 140 characters or I'm not going to read it mentality is really dangerous. Like, it's excruciatingly harmful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it makes you happy, I just found Roger Ebert's review of Fight Club. Gave it 2 stars out of 4.
That's enough. That's all I need to know. 2 stars. That's it. Yeah.
And it starts with Fight Club is the most frankly and cheerfully fascist big star movie since Death Wish. A celebration of violence in which the heroes write themselves a license to drink, smoke, screw, and beat one another up.
Well, I think he was always very conservative when it comes to violence. Like, remember when he hated this thing?
Yeah.
He was very sort of like, gun violence is also a thing for him. Anyway. But, it should be, like, the perfect review of Fight Club is 2 stars or however many stars. I can't really talk about it.
Yeah. I think I opened my review with, to avoid making a joke about the first rule of Fight Club is pretty much the hardest thing any writer can do. To actually make it through a conversation without going, do you know what the first rule of Fight Club is? Have fun, or whatever it was. I don't remember.
Enjoy
it. Was have fun, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It was fun. Just like this conversation was fun. A very exhaustive conversation, I'd say.
Exhausting, yes.
Are you exhausted?
Exhausted.
Hey, I've been up since like 6 because I've had work and my throat is fucked.
Yeah. But you did good. You did good.
We trooped
So,
on through.
why don't we go around the table and share where the lovely listeners can find us? Jakub, how about you go first?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at talkaboutfilm or on Letterboxd as Jakub Flasz, or you can find my writings flashonfilm.com. By the time you're listening to this podcast, maybe my recent piece is going to be out because I've been going through a massive sort of hiatus. I don't know.
Yay.
Also,
The king is
as-
back.
yeah, no, I really need to get into the swing of things because it really messes with my mojo that I can't put pen to paper and I can't find the time or the energy or both at the same time. Because it's either I have time and I'm tired, or I have energy and I don't have time. It's either or. And anyway, so flashonfilm.com is where you can find my stuff. Also, you can listen to our podcast that we do with Nicolò and Randy. And occasionally with Ewan, who comes by to talk about some
Hello.
great films with us every now and again. It's Uncut Gems Podcast, Uncut Gems Pod everywhere, and uncutgemspodcast.com is where you can find us. And then listen to us talk about films that no one else gives a shit about. Yeah.
Heck yeah, like we're going through a August right now, talking about the American Pictures of John Woo, which is one hell of a time. So definitely check that out.
Okay, I thought you meant like. I'm not even going to say it because it's the anime nonsense, that thing
No,
like that.
it's John Woo.
Yeah.
Woo Goose.
Okay.
Because we're
Woohoo.
nerdy in here. Come on.
I'll allow it.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Your Grace.
Not a problem.
You just allowed it. The king has spoken.
Sprinkling likes on all the non-verified Twitter users. Dishing out the occasional retweet to those less fortunate than me. I sound like such a dick. It means nothing that I'm verified. They just asked me if I wanted it, and I went, yeah, that'll be fun.
Like, if anyone listens to this episode, the only person they would think is a dick is me. Don't worry.
Good.
I'll fix it in the editing to make you the hero.
No, you don't have to. I'm fine being the dick.
I'm fine being the dick. What a quote. Ewan, speaking of fine dicks, where can the listeners find you?
You show me yours, I'll show you
mine. People can find me. You know I hate this bit. Have you not just copy pasted like a soundbite for me yet? People can find me on
on the web.
Yeah, they can find. No, they can find me on Twitter and it like physically hurts to say it. They can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at Ewan Gleadow, EWANGLEADOW. You'll know you were on the right profile. I'll have a blue tick next to it. You can also find me on Cult Following, The Geek Show, Clapper, this podcast, sometimes Uncut Gems, Newcastle World, Daily Star.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at NickGra97, and there you can find me linktree/enjoy the movies, which links to everything that I do, including YouTube and Vimeo, where I just released a new short film, Summer Reverie. It was a fun experimental project. So be sure to check that out if you want. And also, you can go on YouTube, you can go on Twitter and Instagram to follow the show. You can follow Death Adaptation Pod on Twitter and Death by Adaptation Pod on Instagram. Stay tuned, because in 2 weeks we're talking about something a bit different, something a bit more familiar with you. Some would say this is a tale as old as time. We're talking, of course, about Beauty and the Beast, primarily Jean Cocteau's film adaptation, but also a little bit of Disney sprinkled on top of it. So be sure to tune in for that. Thank you for listening to this. Thank you for getting so far. We hope you had a good time, and we wish you a lovely day. Bye bye.
And a Merry Christmas.